What is going on, my beautiful people? Welcome back to Unnecessary Rambling. I am Brandon Sylvia. Thank you all for stopping by. I'm joined today by Mr. Jeffrey Martin in the building. How you doing, man?
What's up? No, I don't know. My mind was trying to race and think if something funny would come. It wouldn't, so it just went with that. How's it going, dude?
Pretty
How are you
good,
today?
man. Pretty good. I'm excited to kick this off on this lovely Monday morning. We got a good show planned for you all. Actually, a lot of good video game discussion to be had today. I'm actually curious on some of the things you've been playing here on your list.
Before I jump into that, though, what was that word you said? Can you say that word for us again? You tried to say a word. I think it came out really well. What was it? Can you? I think the audience wants to know what that word was again.
Video gaming, man. Video gaming. That's
Yeah. That hobby,
yeah.
the hobby, video gaming. Okay.
Video gaming. Yeah, that's what my kind of people call it down here in the dirty South.
All right, veggie gaming. All right, vegetable gaming. All right, let's talk about some vegetable games.
But yeah, man, I'm pumped to kick this off today. Like I said, I think you have some interesting stuff on your list to talk about what we've been playing and yeah, dude, I'm pumped to it's early, man. My brain is trying to kick myself into gear to get my wheels spinning to get this thing on and popping, but I'm pumped to have you here, man.
Yeah, for you guys watching, just know we obviously this is our second episode together. We would normally record on just behind the scenes. We would normally would record on a Sunday night. We're fresh from the weekend, ready to go. But this time around, this weekend, we're doing it very early on a Monday morning. So you got to bear with us as we get popping here. So we'll get into it. You just got to let us wake up a second, maybe some yawns, some cries, some yelling. Who knows? But all right,
Are
dude.
you
Well,
are,
let's
oh,
just
hold on,
jump
hold
into
on.
what we
But
no
before you
no.
before
Okay,
before
no.
you, are you a coffee guy?
I am, yeah. So I drink way too much coffee, but this morning I'm trying some green tea in my manly pink mug just because I don't have another color of like one that'll last so it doesn't get cold.
Nice.
So it's tea this morning. Normally coffee, too much coffee. Are you a coffee guy? Do you drink caffeine or are you a caffeine person?
I don't drink any caffeine. I don't drink any coffee. I shouldn't say I don't drink any caffeine. I don't drink any coffee. I
Okay.
try to avoid caffeine, but it's not, I don't, it's, I'm just so anxious that I
Okay.
feel it's not like for any health reasons. Obviously, I mean, I eat damn Whataburger and Waffle House on a daily basis. I'm not living the healthiest of lives out here, but it's, I don't know. I get the jitters from caffeine. So I try to avoid it. Um, just anything. I've been trying to be a little bit healthier in general with just eating and my big thing. Like I never got the I never got the hooks in me with any sort of alcohol or drug addictions, but man, food has me by I mean it has me hooked, dude. I am a junkie for some good horrible food.
And that's okay, man. You got to have everyone's got their things that they go to. What's your I know we're going off on food tangent. Maybe this is going to turn into a food podcast. That's okay. What's your
Hey,
go-to meal and what's your go-to snack food? So like what's your like, man, I need this meal. This is what makes me happiest. What's your snack? You're like when I want to sit down, watch something, play a game, whatever.
okay, so I don't eat at all while playing games, but whenever
Okay.
I'm like watching a podcast or watching a movie or whatever, well, it depends because like for a snack, a good Reese's, a king size Reese's peanut butter cup, I really can't do much better than a good king size Reese's peanut butter cup. Now, I will say this isn't no free promotion over here, so Hope's Cheesecake, you're gonna have to pay me for this, but Hope's Cheesecake, we got a spot in Gulf Shores, Alabama, Hope's Cheesecake. They are. I mean, it's so good. So good. But yeah, like a for a snack that I can kind of rely, like Hope's Cheesecake's fairly expensive, so I don't go there too often. But a good, cheap, nice Reese's peanut butter cup, I can't do much better than that. Some donuts, man. I'm a big sweet guy. I love sweets. For like totally going out, for just as bad as you can get, as unhealthy as you can get. I I would probably say Whataburger, getting like a large onion ring with a honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich, something like that. A chocolate milkshake. That's kind of like when I'm really wanting to feel like absolute ass the next day. That's kind of my go-to.
Monday to Friday then. Okay.
Yeah, well, to
Sorry, I might
be
get too much information there. I shouldn't tell everyone about that. Yeah, okay.
I do avoid the chocolate shakes on Wednesday though, because Wednesday is not the day for chocolate shakes. You just can't do it. You
It's
got
common
it.
knowledge. Yeah, it's common
Yeah,
knowledge.
6 days a week is healthy to drink chocolate shakes, but not seven.
Well, there you have it. Now we know. Well, my go-to snack food, I'm doing better on it. So every night I used to just eat ice cream every night, like every single night. Cause I'm like you, I'm a sweets guy. So I'd rather go for the sweets all the time. And so for those that don't know, I live in Chicago. So like we have a lot of food options living in the city. So for me, it was eating ice cream every single night. And then the pounds, they started to come on, those pounds. That, some tortilla chips, just like some chips and crackers, man, that stuff. But for me, it's going to be pizza. I
Yeah.
can't deny a pizza. Again, living in Chicago, we have like every type of pizza. Although I will say, being from Chicago, I'm not a deep dish guy. I still like the New York style thin crust, like just the Italian Neapolitan. So you give me a good, like, yeah, pizza like that, Dan, I'll scarf that full thing down and gain the pounds and feel like garbage, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
America.
In the land of consumption. Yeah. I dude, I got up to right now I'm sitting at about 248-ish, 247-ish. I got up to 290. Well, it's 286, but I know that was probably lower because I was like the first time I weighed myself, I was starting to diet. So I got up to around like 290. And the thing, like
Okay.
I'm 6'3", so I'm a fairly big dude. And I don't really carry weight horribly. So like I never looked in the mirror and was like, oh dude, you gotta do something about this. But it was just like I remember one day I was driving back home from work and it felt like my gut was just pushing into my chest. And I was like, all right, that's the sign right there. That's the sign. If I ever needed a sign to start dieting, that's the sign. I was getting anxiety. I was like, "Dang," my chest feels a little bit tight. And it's like, dude, your gut's pushing into it.
That quickly reminds me, because as you say that, I used to, so I right now weigh like a little over 200, but I used to weigh like 140. I was tiny, man, like tiny little like dude. And a few years ago I was working an office job in the city, and you had to wear like the nice clothes, dress up, all that shenanigans, something I don't normally do. And it was during this time of like sedentary job and eating a bunch of crap at night and during the day. And to your point, I started to notice that like the nice shirt that I was wearing, the buttons were popping off. And the buttons were popping off because, as you said, they were just pushing out there. So I'd look down and I'd be like, well, there goes a button. I guess I'm a fatty. Better lose that. So
Dude, no.
here we are.
A crazy thing I've noticed too is that I feel, and it's so weird. You know how you'll hear people say, well, what would you do if you didn't work? How are you going to be productive if you don't work? How are you going to find that thing that inspires you if you don't? Like people talk about, you shouldn't retire early because you're not going to have that fire in you. You're not going to have, dude. I find when I have off days, I'm so much healthier, so much more productive. Whenever because similar to you, a lot of my job is sitting, and I find that if I don't like if I have to sit for let's just say 5 out of the 8 hours in a day or whatever, whatever comparison you want to throw out there. Like
Mhm.
it feels harder whenever you're off to get that energy to keep moving. But whenever I'm off and it's like, okay, I'll go out and I'll work out for 30 minutes. I'll go and do this for like, I feel just it's easier to keep moving. And I even like, I track it on my Fitbit, just the movement and days where I'm like, my off days, I'm so much more productive in terms of like moving around and trying to be healthy than I am when I work. It's a really weird thing. I wonder if that's a common I wonder if that's common, or I wonder I'm not sure, but I really find that I'm way more productive when I have off days, which is kind of antithetical to what I guess most people would assume.
That's a good point. And the fact that you can like recognize that about yourself. Do you think though it's because the other days of the week or weekend, whatever, you're working, and so like you're doing that. So obviously by nature of having the off days, you're going to want to like feel more energized because it's like your time, right? If you had your time all the time, I'm just trying to think of like the devil's advocate side to that point you made. This is
Yeah.
turning into like a TED talk, isn't it? Now we're like about like the pros and cons of like the
The
days off.
workforce.
But I just wonder, like, is it because, like, because I know like when I work a lot and then I have a couple of days off, I feel the same way as you. Not like, but that's because I'm like, man, it just feels nice to not have to work. So I just want to like enjoy all the things. Where if it was like every day, I don't know. I just wonder what part of it's that.
Well, I think the thing about it that's interesting for me is like when I don't have work days, I kind of turn them into work days just with rigorous exercise and like I try to do things, but do things for me and not do things for work. You know what I mean? Like I still like the production, productivity of being in motion and like, but it feels so much harder to really line those things up when you're busy at work than whenever you have like a total free day to yourself. It just, I don't know. I think I'm the perfect person for retirement because like I don't like doing things. I don't like doing expensive things at all. Like I have zero, well, video games kind of an expensive hobby, but outside of video games, I have zero expensive hobbies. I don't like, flashy cars, flashy clothes, jewelry. Like I'm not into any of that stuff. Retirement for me is literally like waking up when I want and then exercising like a maniac and finding a good podcast to listen to. Like I really think that for me personally, the benefits I would get from an early retirement would far outweigh the negatives that people throw out there of not, you're not gonna be productive, you're not gonna have that fire in you. I feel like I have way more fire in me on an off day than a work day. But
Hey, listen, touche. That works. If that's the point, you know yourself. That's good self-awareness that you can recognize that already, right? And that means that even if you do retire early, you'll be able to find ways to fill your time. And so the more reason for everyone watching to support and subscribe and watch all this so we can get the goal of Brandon retiring early. There you go. That's the new goal here.
I'll start streaming my off days, just a camera just posted up for 12 hours a day watching me watch the damn Easy Allies podcast or something.
They have like all the people love those puppy cams, right? So we're gonna have a branding cam. That sounds inappropriate. That sounds like an OnlyFans thing. Never mind. Maybe later, yeah. But
hey, if
maybe later, maybe down the line, 1,000 subscribers, OnlyFans.
OnlyFans, Kick, whoever, Twitch, send me out a contract. I need that early retirement money. Come on.
Hope's cheesecake. Hope's cheesecake. Give us a call. Apparently,
send out the bucks. Hope's cheesecake. But
well, speaking of our off days and things we like doing, what are the games we're playing? We looks like we each have a few games, and there's even one game that just came out, which we'll get to, that we're both playing and are excited to talk about. So how do we want to kick it off? Do you want to start with something you're playing?
Yeah, I'll go through real quick. I booted up Gears of War 1 for the first time. I've never, well, I played like the first level or something with a buddy, but I really had no experience with it, and it was just kind of hard to sit down and really appreciate it when you're playing it co-op and kind of, bantering back and forth and all that. Like I couldn't really see what made Gears of War tick. And playing through it this time, I absolutely did. The Gears of War is a really, really fun game. And like, oh, that's such a surprising revelation. A game that sold millions of copies and was critically praised up and down. Yeah, it's a good game. Yep, that's my take. It's a good game. But it really is. It was really fun, and it was, 6-7 hours. I do gotta say, I gotta go ahead and give myself an L here, or whatever you want to call it. I popped it on I played it on the casual mode because I was intimidated at the little home screen. It said casual, hardcore, and insane. And I was like, well, damn, if my only other option's hardcore, I don't know if I have the hardcore. I mean, to be fair, to give myself a little credit here, I knew we were going to play Layers of Fear on the 15th. I knew that I think it came out on the 15th, and I booted Gears of War up on the 13th. And so I was like, I don't want to end up having to, make this a 14-hour thing while I'm trying to go through these bosses before Layers of Fear comes out, because I really wanted to cover that with you. But I don't know. I always had this snooty attitude towards Gears of War. I had this snooty attitude towards towards Gears of War. Okay. And it's totally not like me to be like that. I would call it like a bro shooter, and then I just totally dismissed it in this like snarky manner, as if I was like above it. And I, it's weird because this is totally my style of game. Evil West that came out last year is very inspired by Gears of War, and that was like my, I think, third favorite game of the year. Um, I don't know. It's just, yeah, that was not my personality. I like kind of mainstream sort of junk food, Fast and Furious esque stuff. I don't mind that at all. I love a good new metal song. I'll tune into some damn. I'll tune into some Nickelback. I like that kind of whatever mainstream broy. Like I'm okay with that stuff. Um, so
Okay.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I loved the limb dismemberment. I thought it was so cool to have the enemy run up on you, and then like in the split second you pull out the magnum, take off their head, take them off from the waist. You got the legs just left behind dangling. It was just so fun to play. The little chainsaw gun, you take the chainsaw and rip through the enemy. I thought the story was surprisingly intriguing. It is very
Okay.
early 2000s broy, but it has solid production, great cinematics. Um, just some cool boss fights. One where you're like dodging this rhino-esque creature that's charging towards you, and he has to take out the beams and uh, have sunlight come in so you can use this specific weapon to like hone in and take him out. And uh, yeah, the only like big complaint I would have for the game is that running was just horrific. Running was
Yeah.
god awful in that first Gears of War game. But yeah, the horror undertones for some of the sections, and having to stay in the light so that those flying bat-like creatures wouldn't come down and take you out, and having like diversity with little tank sections, and just a really fun game, like a really fun game. I enjoyed the hell out of Gears of War 1.
I mean, it's cool that you go back to play some of the older games. I mean, it's crazy to think now that Gears of War 1 is an older game. It's not, maybe not a retro game, but it's considered that. And the Xbox 360 era, as we know, PS3 era was filled with similar types of, yeah, like the whatever you want to call them, the bro shooters, like the very like AAA, box officey looking move, like action movie games. I have two things I want to, well, one thing I want to ask, second thing I want to say. The first is what kind of what made you not want to play the series? Like, is it because you just thought like, hey, it's another bro shooter? But what made you be like, you know what, Gears of War isn't for me, even though I like what kept you away from it? Because I've played all of them, and
Oh,
they're
cool.
not my cup of tea, but I've played all of them, even though they're not my cup of tea. So I'm just curious what kept you from wanting to earlier.
It was never like, it was just so Gears of War came out in 2000, 2005, 2006, I believe, like right around the launch of the 360.
Oh man,
And
we're old.
yeah. And so at that time I would have been 11 if it came out in 2005, 12 if it came out in 2006, and my mom got me a PlayStation 3. And so I just didn't have the console. It was literally, I would have been all over Gears of War. But I just didn't have the console. So a lot like, the same thing with PS2. I got a PS2 instead of an original Xbox as a kid, and instead of a GameCube. So I've always kind of been a PlayStation kid up until I had my own money and which, when I did have my own money, which would have been the eighth generation with PS4 and Xbox One, there was really not a great reason to buy an Xbox One at the time, So I went with a PlayStation
Okay.
4, and then so it wasn't until this generation when Microsoft bought, Bethesda and Obsidian and Ninja Theory and these developers that I really enjoy their games, where I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to get this box to play some of those exclusives. And now I'm kind of getting, because I want to go back to, I want to play Halo. I've never played the Halo games. I'd like to play through the Gears of War games. Played Forza Horizon for the first time 2 years ago and loved it. So yeah, I'm trying to go back through that stuff.
That's cool. It's cool that you're now trying to like go back and appreciate, because I think that's what Microsoft, and this is a tangent, but I guess it relates to Gears of War, is, Microsoft's doing such a good job, or at least a pretty decent job, with allowing that backwards compatibility, at least with their bigger games. And so the fact that you can go back and play Xbox 360 games, some original Xbox games too, is pretty darn crazy. And the fact that they're also like enhanced a little bit or somewhat upscaled, or, at least minutely with the frame rate. It's funny because you're the whole thing of like what console you had when you were younger. It does dictate, obviously, maybe it's obvious, but it dictates what games you're going to play and avoid until you can get a system yourself. Because I was on the opposite end of you. My parents bought me the original Xbox and Halo. So like I put fond memories of playing through the OG Halo with my dad, but then that meant missing out on a ton of like PlayStation games that I really, really wanted to play until I got the money to get one on my own. So it is interesting how like you become so attached to those properties and that console until you finally are able to get it for yourself. But then you almost maybe kind of like reappreciate that maybe more than you would have at the time, right? Because you know you missed out on it.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. It's cool going back to something that you can avoid the hype in the moment and you can kind of look at it with fresh eyes just to see what you really think. I actually saw this on Twitter, I believe the other day, where someone was talking about film criticism being not as I don't know, just not as good as it once was, which people always do that stuff. But I'm not a film critic. Like I don't really follow a lot of film critics, so I don't really know the state of film criticism. But I did see a comment in there where it was like, I feel that people the usually the best criticism or the best sort of coverage is for older products and like going into it for the first time with fresh eyes because you're kind of removed from all the because are you in with the news that's going on about this, are you going to talk about like it kind of can distract you from the actual product that you're supposed to be covering and you're talking about all these other things. Oh, the console wars is Gears of War, the bro shooter for Xbox. It's how's it gonna compete with it? It's like I don't care about that. I'm playing it in 2023. I don't have the perspective from 2006. You know what I mean? Distracting me from the actual game, which the game was great. I don't care about any of that other stuff in 2023. You know?
No, it's a good point. You're right. I think you hit on the nail on the head there. When you're removed from the zeitgeist, it eliminates both the recency bias of a game just being out and everyone's excited. I guess you could take, games like Elden Ring, Tears of the Kingdom, as examples of games that clearly people love them and clearly they're good to certain extents for a lot of people, but those are and were the games in the zeitgeist. So like if people look at it, maybe like you're saying 10 years, 15 years later, will they be as beloved or will people like, for example, I don't care for Elden Ring. I don't think it's that good of a game. But that being said, maybe in 10 years I'll play it and be like, wow, okay, for some reason trying it now, maybe it's better. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's more of a tangent, but it is interesting with the point you say about it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I'm not the I know this is once again a tangent. I'm not the Souls guy. I can appreciate, both here's a tangent where we're going on some damn tangents today, but I really this is a bummer to me to admit, and I hate that this is gonna sound so not naive, so one track minded. So I don't really know the correct terminology that I'm looking for here, but I think if Tears of the Kingdom wasn't on the Switch, it would probably be like my favorite game of the year. And I hate to be so
Huh.
honest about that, but I hate playing the Switch so much. And it's not like I'm not a graphics guy, I'm not a performer. Like I want to have state of the art graphics and performance and all that, but it's not like that's not going to like because I love a good indie game like that doesn't run at 60 frames or whatever the case may be, 4K, but it's the controls, man. I get so used to the Xbox input and the PlayStation input where X and A are at the same spot, B and circle, triangle and Y, so it's like I those things are all so baked into my brain where it's like
Yeah.
going and trying to play a game on the Switch where everything is just kind of realigned slightly. And there wasn't, as far as I'm aware, there wasn't a way to change that in Tears of the Kingdom. I was just like, I don't want to do this, man.
That that's so interesting. I've never heard that point before, not just like with Nintendo or the Switch, but just in general. I think we should file that away because that could be a really interesting subtopic for another episode of like, would you enjoy a game better if it was on XYZ platform? We should file that away. If anyone is interested in that, let us know in the comments too. That could be a whole fun little segment because that
Yeah.
gets my brain churning because I didn't never thought about that until you just mentioned it. But like you, I also really don't enjoy playing most games on the Switch unless it's like a game I'm playing with my wife, like a platforming game or something. But other than that, I'd rather play it elsewhere. So I hear you, but we'll file that away. Maybe we'll come back to that as a topic because that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That is an interesting topic. Well, go ahead and hit me with your the game you want to kick off your list with.
Well, so speaking, I guess to kind of be like professional sounding, just to sound to keep on our Nintendo theme that we just finished up with. So I've been playing Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope with my wife. So my wife and I play. She wasn't a gamer. I kind of got her into playing games way back in the day, and now we play like all the first party Nintendo games together, the good ones, not Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. And No, but we're playing Sparks of Hope. I really enjoyed the first Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I played that on my own a few years back, and I really liked it. So, for those that don't know, the Mario plus Rabbids games are essentially like if you took Nintendo, the Rabbids, and then mashed them with like an XCOM style strategy game. It sounds bizarre. It doesn't seem like it would even work, but the first game was really cool in the way that you had strategy tactical battles, but Nintendo-ified, if that even makes sense. Like they made them user friendly, where just the whole mashup of the Rabbids and the Nintendo characters using weapons and battling enemies, but then you're exploring like kind of this overworld and getting secrets. And there's a really funny story, and there's like songs. It's so bonkers. But there was a demo for Sparks of Hope, the second one, and ended up picking that up and bought the game on a sale, and we really love it. So we've put in about 4 or 5 hours. But if you like strategy games or like turn-based games, but want a less punishing one than something like XCOM, Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope it's really cool. It's a lot of fun. It's really charming. It's a good game to play with a partner who's maybe not into games or isn't as invested in games like we are. So yeah, so that's one that I've just been playing on the side with her. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw that on sale recently, and I thought about picking it up, and I was like, there's already 853 things I'm trying to juggle between playing. But yeah, it looks, the art style is striking. The turn-based battles, or the tactical battles, look not, involved, but like you said, kind of simple enough to get through for a novice player. So yeah, it looks damn good.
One thing I want to say really quick, and this is not, it's kind of a tangent, but not really, is demos. So here's the thing. If there's any developers or publishers listening, which I'm sure there isn't, but if there is, if you're going to have a demo, thank you, but also make sure your save transfers to the full game. I can't tell you how frustrating it is when you play a demo that's seemingly a part of the full game, and you get 2, 3 hours in, and then you buy the game and you have to start everything over again. With Sparks of Hope, you have to start almost all of it over again. And we put like 3 hours into the demo. If you're going to do a demo, make sure that I just hate when a demo doesn't allow you to transfer that over if it's like a whole segment of the game, not like a little chunk taken out, if you know what I mean.
For sure.
That's just like a huge pet peeve of mine. The Dark Pictures anthology do a terrible job with this. Though the trials that you can try for the game, none of it transfers over, so you have to start all over anyway. And that really bums me out. It's just a side note, pet peeve. But I just wish all demos transferred over if it was possible.
Well, I speaking of that, if you want to head straight on into the next game you have on your list, Final Fantasy 16, to talk about that demo a little bit, since it's
Oh,
kind of in the theme there.
yeah, we can hop into that really quick. So yeah, the PlayStation, it's just PlayStation 5, right?
Yeah.
For Final Fantasy 16, which comes out at the time of recording this in what, like 3 days, the 22nd
Yeah,
of
the
June.
22nd. Yeah.
I'm not going to talk much about it because I know you're really excited, but I won't say much because I know you're not jumping into the demo, correct?
No, yeah, because I was gonna play it. Like I'm 100% absolutely there day one.
Okay, so yeah, I downloaded the Final Fantasy 16 demo on PlayStation 5. This is a perfect example, as Brandon said, of a demo giving you the pretty much the whole like 3 to 5 hours of the opening of the game, and
Wow.
you can transfer it right over if you opt to buy it. I don't have much to say. I've only put in a couple hours. I expected to dip out of this immediately. I don't have the Final Fantasy love that a lot of people do, so I'm jumping into this as kind of like, I've enjoyed the series. I like RPGs, but I don't really care if I like this or not. I'm hooked. The story, I'm
Nice.
not going to say anything, but the story, oh my gosh, I did not expect the story to be engaging, and it is. There's so many cutscenes. Maybe that's not a surprise to Final Fantasy people, but there's
Right.
so many cutscenes. They're so good. It's a great story. The action combat feels so fluid. I didn't expect to like it, and it just feels really cool and really fun and really polished. And the fact that the demo transfers over, it's like, okay, they know what they're doing. And yeah, so that's all I'm going to say about it. But I'm only about a couple hours into the demo. But yeah, I'm excited for you to try it and excited for you to hear your feedback when you play the whole thing.
So, how sold are you? Are you like a day one lock on it? Are you going to wait a little bit, or how are you feeling after playing it? What degree are you sold to?
What degree? Here's the problem. Just like you said, there's 853 other games I want to
Yeah,
play still. My backlog of RPGs is massive. I still want to finish the likes of Kingdom Hearts 3 and things like that. So the thought of jumping into a massive RPG, I just don't think it's possible with all the games I have on my backlog right now. So
yeah.
for me, it's going to be a probably wait for a sale.
Wait for
Not that
sale.
it's not worth the full purchase. I just don't have the time. So
Yeah.
you're going to be jumping in day one though, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll be talking about that bad boy for sure here on the channel. I man, that combat, that's the thing with me. I saw that combat and I was like, dude, yes, sign me up for this. If Final Fantasy goes in this direction, which I know a lot of people are absolutely not happy about Final Fantasy moving in this direction, but if they choose to go in this direction, I'll be here for all of those entries, all of them. I love some good hacking and slashing Devil May Cry inspired combat. It's probably, I don't know. I mean, I can't say my favorite, but character action games are up there, but like some of my all-time favorites in terms of just a genre that I almost never dislike. Love some character action style stuff, and all the, like you said, the icon abilities and all of that crazy kaiju stuff that they're pulling off. It just looks so tailor-made for me. I can't wait to play that bad boy.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So I'm assuming next week's episode, pending anything that happens, you'll be talking about what your experience is so far, right? Spoiler.
Yeah,
Can
let's
we say that?
see. Let's go to the calendar
The
here.
22nd is like this Thursday or Friday, I think, right?
Thursday. Yep. So we would record
So
on the
maybe.
25th. Yeah. I mean, I should, I don't know how in depth my thoughts will be on it next week, but definitely I should have played a little bit of it next week when we come in to record. So absolutely, man.
All right. Well, there we are. So why don't we I would say we'll save our one we're both playing. You already spoiled it. Thanks a lot. Layers of
Oh,
Fear. No, no. All right. Why don't you go into what you've been playing next? We'll save that for last so we can both talk about it. What else you been playing?
so I jumped into Resident Evil Revelations. Wanted to, I actually scrolling through those damn sales on the Microsoft store. I saw it there for like $7, and I have a copy of it. Yeah, got a copy of it on the PlayStation 4, but I just I was it was once again the convenience of it. I was like, yeah, I'm just sitting here. I might as well pick this up. It's a quick download. I'll jump into it, and I didn't really have any intentions on finishing it, but I'm 3 hours in at this point. I think as far as I remember, it's a fairly short game. It's been a while since I played it, but I don't remember it being much longer than like 8 hours. And I think I'm about somewhere around that halfway mark, and so I think I'm just gonna go through it. This game holds up surprisingly well for a game that released in 2011, 2012. I think it came out the year after Resident Evil 5 or 2 years after Resident Evil 5, if I'm
And
not
didn't it only
mistaken.
come out on the originally only came out on the DS, Nintendo DS or something, correct?
Uh
Or maybe I'm completely wrong. I thought it only came out on a handheld first. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I no, I think it came out, if I'm not mistaken, it came out on the DS, PS3, and
Okay.
360. If I'm not, I really don't know. It might have been a staggered release where it came out on the
Okay.
DS first, and then PS3, and then all that at a later date. But yeah, because the crazy thing about this would be the first Resident Evil game with the third person over the shoulder perspective that allowed you to move while aiming. And that's
Uh,
such a like RE6 would have been the first one in the main series, like in the numbered
okay.
series, but this was the first game that introduced that. And that's a huge game changer, especially when I think RE5 came out in 2009 and this came out in like, so this was a couple years after RE5, but it was even at the time when RE5 came out and you weren't able to move and shoot after seeing, uh Dead Space and Gears of War and these other games that feature was a little becoming more common. It was
Mhm.
like it was weird that it wasn't an option in Resident Evil 5. And I guess it could have been some sort of immersion tension building thing that they were wanting to do by keeping you stagnant, keeping you grounded, and having to kind of face the enemies oncoming. But I don't know. I love the addition of moving and shooting here. I actually really like the addition of the little dodge mechanic that they have in Revelations. It's simple, but it's I actually let me take that back. It's very can be very clunky, but once you kind of you figure the workaround out where you just rotate the analog stick while holding A, it becomes really simple. You can kind of avoid most enemies other than like the big boss enemies, so you can kind of cheese your way through it. But I don't mind that, especially going back to it and playing it in 2023. Having if I try not to overuse it, but if I'm in a situation where I'm just bombarded by these creatures coming at me, I'll spam a little dodge stick and get out the way. But it's it's a really the people were kind of split on the episodic nature of these Revelations games, where it's told in chapter increments. And I love that because it's constantly giving you something fresh, a new perspective, new characters, a new setting. And I like variety. I know people love, just going through the Spencer Mansion, going through the Raccoon City Police Department. I do too. But for me personally, having that variety and kind of like constantly giving you some new toy to mess around with, some rather it be a setting or a character, whatever, I really dig that. And also it's a main Resident Evil story. You know what I mean? Like you're talking about Jill and Chris, who are, they've been there from literally the first game, and this is furthering their backstory, a main canon lore, and then adding on new characters with Parker, who is with Jill, and then Jessica, who's with Chris, and then there's interesting character dynamics there that are created, and kind of Chris and Jessica's it's not a will they won't they, it's Jessica kind of having a slight obsession with Chris, and Chris wanting to go and save Jill, and Jessica kind of being put off by that at times. It's just a funny, there's a little bit of levity, a nice dynamic that's going on there. Like at one time, Chris is being bombarded by these wolves that are attacking him, and you're literally just blasting wolves all over the place. So close to the damn edge of death. And as soon as you get freed, as soon as you get saved, Jessica goes right back to talking about your relationship with Jill. And it's so campy and silly. But also you have the moments of more like tense survival horror, where when you're playing Jill and Parker's segment, well, specifically when you're playing as Jill, that is very much a traditional survival horror game with the ship setting. You're on this like cruise ship of sorts. It's humongous, expansive, tons of backtracking that can be done there, but not overdone with the backtracking. Like it kind of guides you in the right direction, but there are, little loops you can make. Okay, I'm going to go and grab that shotgun. I'm going to go and grab this customization parts for my weapons, which that's another cool thing as well. You can customize your weapons, have little different bonuses that you add on from little things you find out in the world. And yeah, I really I enjoyed the hell out of this game when I played it, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it still to this day. I think it still holds up really well.
I mean, that was a good synopsis of that experience, from especially because most people, now that the RE4 remake's out, are gonna keep that up there as the highest echelon, understandably. How does this fit into your, I don't even know if you have a tier list of RE games. I know your favorite one, obviously, but where does this kind of replace anything? Does it slot in anywhere for you, of like, okay, this is actually better than or worse than, now that because you sound like you have a lot of passion for it, at least based on you just having played it this week. Where does it fit in, if it does?
Let's see. Top S tier is 4, 2, 4 remake. Ooh, I would say that this is high on the B tier. I would say high on the B tier, closing in on that A tier. I think A tier for me is like Code Veronica, RE3 from 99. It's close to that though. I don't know, man. It might be it's not S tier. It's not 2,
Right.
4 remake. It's not in the camp with those, but it's just one below that. Maybe in the camp. No, because I would put RE2. I would put RE2 remake in the A tier. It would be top of the B tier, top of the B tier.
I've opened up a whole new segment in the show for you. Now you're like, crap. Now I have to do a half an hour of ranking every game right now.
Rapid rankings. Yeah, no, it would be top of the B tier, closing in on the A tier for me though. But yeah, it's really really fun. It's like the only thing that's slightly dated, and it makes you appreciate the remake so much more, is that you're led into this animation when you're walking through doors. So you can literally, like, you have to take 2 steps when you walk into the door without being able to control your character. So you can just be led straight in to an enemy. And it's like, you can't really, you can't have any sort of plan of attack with a lot of the doors. You're just kind of led right into, and you have to figure it out from that point forward. I love the literally, everything in real time, opening the door in Resident Evil 2 and kind of, being able to bob and weave a little bit, picking off an enemy like that's definitely one of the areas here where you're going to feel the age the most. But other than that, and a couple little things, it holds up really well.
You've made me want to jump back into it because I have it on Xbox. I've jumped into that game 2 or 3 times. I love Resident Evil. I'm not as much of a fan as you are. I'm more Silent Hill, but I've played Revelations, probably started it over 2 or 3 times and really liked the feel of it. For whatever reason, it just didn't click. That being said, I played Revelations 2 before I ever even played Revelations 1, and I adored Revelations 2. I think I played through that in like 2 or 3 days, just over all the episodes. And that game was absolutely phenomenal with the scares and the story. Again, I'm not, and everyone should probably know that watches this. I'm not as good at Brandon of like remembering characters and lore, and like I just forget all that stuff. But Revelations 2 for me was such a phenomenal game, but I never felt as connected to the first one. So did you play, or have you played Revelations 2? Okay.
I love Revelations 2 is hands down. The survival horror, like the real survival horror feel, especially with the prison section and all that. Revelations 2 is tremendous, man. I prefer that one still. Once again, I need to go back and replay that one. I don't think I'm going to do it right now because of, like you said, Final Fantasy 16 and all that on the horizon, but I love Revelations 2. So yeah, I think that obviously Revelations 2 being 2015, 20, it came out
Mhm.
after Revelations 1, obviously. And
Really? I would have never guessed. I can't believe you said that. No, I'm
but the fact
sort
the
of.
fact that it's I believe it was developed for 8th generation systems, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was
Yeah.
developed for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One when it was
Yeah.
released. So it wasn't like it with Revelations, it's you're playing a PS3 game on your PS4, essentially. You
Right.
know what I mean? With Revelations 2, you're playing a PlayStation 4 game on your PlayStation 4. So it's like you
Yeah.
you feel absolutely the improvements. Like you definitely feel the improvements across the board from a graphical perspective, from a gameplay perspective. So yeah, Revelations 2 is fantastic.
That game needs to be in the discourse more of RE talk. I don't, even though everyone I talk to that has played it loves it, I don't hear really people talk about it in the greater RE discourse, which is so bizarre because it's such a phenomenal spinoff that still relates back to a lot of the main, at least from what I know, of the main storylines.
Well,
So
absolutely. Yeah. Claire and Barry, and yeah, absolutely. There's real ties to the main story with Resident Evil Revelations 2 and 1. And the thing that's really, I once again, to Resident Evil Revelations 1, to its credit, once again, if you look at what was taking place, RE5 over the top action, RE6 over the top action, Revelation slotted in between the two. And I think the fanfare and the praise from the people, the hardcore Resident Evil fans who really got behind Revelations 1, because it felt like a little bit more of a return to form, especially with the Jill section. And Chris still had his over the top action, the 2 new characters, but it felt a little bit more, it felt more traditional. and you could kind of start to see the wheels turning from that point. Then you go on into Revelations 2 and then finally with RE7. But weird thing is I feel like Revelations 2 and 1 are almost more of like main canon Resident Evil games than RE7 and RE8. RE7, like there's ties to the main lore towards the end, but in RE8 there's definitely ties to the main lore. But Revelations 1 and 2 are like straight up main canon Resident Evil games. So yeah, I definitely recommend playing it for anybody who's looking to go through. If you're looking to go through like the full main series, the numbered entries, definitely slot in Revelations 1 and 2 and Code Veronica without a doubt.
Agreed. Nice. That's awesome. Well, I'm excited. I'll have to jump back into the first one now that you've talked about it. You got me excited about it.
It's damn good.
So really quick before we talk about what our main ones we both played, I'll just gloss over this. I've also just been diving in back into the Alan Wake remastered. So I played the original Alan Wake on the 360 years when it first came out. I adored that game. I know a lot of people aren't a huge fan of it for a lot of reasons because it's like not quite survival horror, but it's like kind of action, but not that scary, blah, blah, blah. I absolutely adore the first game. But that was because I had a 360 only at the time. So it was like my option to play for a good survival horror game on 360. One of the good ones. Obviously, there's plenty more. Anyway, I've played it like 2 or 3 times since. I just adore that game. But obviously, we all know, or most of us know, Alan Wake 2 is coming in October. That's the game currently I'm most excited for the rest of this year. So this last week, I just wanted to get that vibe, that kind of like Twin Peaks B horror camp, like Bright Falls, Northwest United States feel. So I just kind of dove back into Alan Wake remastered for a couple hours. And I got to say the world building and the characters and even the whole light and light and darkness where you have to shine the flashlight and burn off the darkness. I know people think that's so dumb. I really like that because I love that kick of when the light kind of explodes off the what do they call it, the Taken or whatever, and then you have to take them down and shoot them. But just exploring that world and the whole Twin Peaks vibe is I love it. I love that feeling. So I'm not planning to like finish it again. I'm just more diving back in here and there to get that Alan Wake vibe prior to Alan Wake 2. So just been diving into that. I can't remember if you like Alan Wake or not. I couldn't remember if you were a fan of it or not, or even if you've played it or not. I couldn't remember.
So I played through about 3/4 of the game, half the game, something like that, whenever it got remastered, because I once again didn't have a 360. I like it. I love the story, man. The story was amazing. I thought like they did a really good job with jump scares, which is something that, a lot of people shit on jump scares. I don't really mind a good jump scare from time to time. And I think Alan Wake did it in a nice, subtle way that it didn't feel like too intrusive, but like you could see something pop out the corner of your eye. It's like, oh wow. That kind of jarring feeling that you got from Alan Wake. I just didn't love the combat. That was the only thing with me. I just didn't love the combat. So leaning in, I really hope they move a little bit away from the flashlight thing and then, having to shine the light and then pick them up. Like, I really hope it kind of gets more straight up third person shootery with like the Resident Evil vibes. I did see a little bit of the flashlight coming into play in that gameplay trailer that they put out. But yeah, I like it. I didn't like it enough to finish it, and it was just down to the combat, the story, the presentation, all that I really loved.
Interesting. Okay, so there you go. So it's funny how like I really enjoyed the combat part, you didn't, but there was the cohesion of the story we still like. So there you go.
Yeah,
that was just a quick one, but
and we'll be talking more about Alan Wake 2 at the closing topic, the final topic that the good people voted on. Alan Wake 2 is definitely the inspiration for that conversation. So it's yeah, a lot to dive into there with that final discussion. But
I'll let you kick off. I'll let you kick off the next one because I think we're kind of wanted to do this a little differently for everybody with the next game that we both tangentially have been playing a new release, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Layers of Fear, the 2023 reimagining. Would you call it?
Yeah, I think that seems like a good word.
Okay,
I think they may have used that, but it's a good word.
So I just to lay the groundwork, I'd never played Layers of Fear 1, never played Layers of Fear 2. And so I was going into this fresh. I have to be honest, Jeffrey, I am not the biggest fan of these kind of walking sim-ish horror titles. Having said that, I really, really enjoyed this game. I played through it in like 2 days. I was really hooked. by this game and just the weird setup of the narrative of kind of my favorite thing about this game is it almost feels like a choose your own adventure, but just in your movement. Like, do I go down this hallway or that hallway? I have to make that decision because I know that the door behind me will probably be locked, and then that's going to open up into a new world. And then it's like almost such a silly comparison, but almost Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart esque, where you're constantly swapping in between these worlds instantaneously. It's very impressive from a technical perspective. What is going on here with Layers of Fear? I it's a tale of two halves for me. The first half of the game I really, really, really enjoyed. The do we want to get into I'll just say that the first half of the game I really
Yeah.
enjoyed.
Let's avoid spoilers, but we can, I mean, we can say because it's still broken up into segments. That's not a spoiler because it's basically real quick. I won't ruin your tangent or not your tangent. I won't ruin what you're saying, but basically for those that don't know, this reimagining of Layers of Fear, because I'm someone that played all the previous ones and like a lot of it, where that's what's cool about our perspective. This reimagining is essentially Layers of Fear 1 and all of its DLC, Layers of Fear 2 and all of its DLC, but there's an overarching story that grasps onto it that links everything together and then intersperses a bunch of new stuff to flesh it out into one full game. So that's all I wanted to say because I think we have that unique perspective of you never playing it, me playing it, and now playing this one together. So sorry, go ahead.
No, that was pretty much it. I was just saying it's a tale of two halves. The first half of the game I really, really enjoyed. The back half of it, I started to come around on it the more I played it, but it felt wildly inferior in my opinion. It felt like even from a technical perspective, what was going on with the world and even the visuals, um, even down to like the controls felt just slightly clunkier in the back half of that game. It was a little bit bizarre how drastic of a decline it was, but the first half of the game was excellent, absolutely excellent. I loved the first half of the game.
What's interesting about you, it's cool hearing you talk about it because it's very much reminiscent of when Layers of Fear the original came out and then Layers of Fear 2, because Layers of Fear 1 when it originally came out was just that, a walking sim horror game. I personally adore that because I like that feeling of just walking through like a haunted house. And sometimes I just want to turn my brain off and explore. But Layers of Fear 2, you can tell the developer. So it's Bloober Team, for those that don't know, Bloober Team, who's obviously made a lot of horror games, the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remaster. But the Layers of Fear 2 almost took the approach of something like Outlast in the sense that they kind of removed some of the walking sim and made it where you're really just like you have to run away from enemies a lot. It's a little bit more corridored and like linear. They took away a lot of what made the first one unique to try to almost make it more quote unquote mainstream of a horror game. But by nature of what you're saying, it almost made it more antiquated, where the
Yeah,
first one really leaned into like you turn around, the room's different, you look up, the room's different. Just like you're saying, that is, as someone that played the first to seeing this new one, where I think they redid it in Unreal Engine 5, I
yeah,
believe. Holy crap. As someone that played the first to this one, seeing these new worlds just quickly like swap, I don't know how that wizardry is done. And they deserve to be so praised for that because it's truly incredible.
yeah.
So where did you feel like when you swapped to like the second part then, like which is technically Layers of Fear 2 or the right, you know, the other story, the actor.
Yeah,
Where
the
did you
actor.
feel like it for you was like, no, this isn't it
Immediately, like
immediately?
immediately. It was because the close, and once again, no spoilers, but the
Mhm.
closing bits of that first story, the artist, the painter, that was crazy on a technical level. Seeing these, like looking up and almost seeing this endless uh endless rays above you in the kind of library section where you're kind of platforming around, and like it was just mind-boggling how the scale, the epic scale that you felt with that towards the end of that first story. And then it got very, like you said, more limited with tighter corridors and not as much quick swapping to these new these new locations on the fly. It was a little bit more, felt like you said, more traditional, a little bit of backtracking going on, a little bit more of a little bit more explorability in the
Mhm.
ship setting, but it wasn't it just didn't have that kind of technical wow factor that the first part of the game had. And I noticed that instantly, even from like just very, very small details. It was weird. It was kind of jarring.
Mm. So to be fully transparent, I know. So you obviously finished the game,
I,
the
I
new one we're talking about, right?
I finished everything
And
except the two little there's like two little DLC add-ons.
okay. So yeah, just for full transparency for anyone wondering, I don't want to, have any like, not being up front. You finished it all. I've only currently at the time recording this played through the first half, which is like technically the layers of one, Fear One, the painter story, which, with all of like the lighthouse in between like story that kind of glues it all together without spoilers, of course. So I haven't even jumped. I've just now, my save is just starting the ship section. So it's curious to hear what you say, because I'll be interested to see if I feel that same way as you did. So I just
Right.
want to be fully transparent of kind of where we're both at with that, having the perspective of one that's played it, one who hasn't. You finished it. Now I'm working on finishing it. So just so people know.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing there's one section not to spoil anything, but it's this black
Okay.
and white section in part two, the actor story, and how they use like little splashes of color in that was very, very impressive on that front. But I I want to kick it to you, man. What did you the first half of that game? What are your kind of overall takeaways from it? Because I loved like really and I'm not into these style of games at all. But how immediate the how immediate it delivered new things to you. It just it like kept my lizard brain going where I was like, I can't quit doing this. Like you're constantly giving me something new to look at, something new to digest from a story perspective. Like I was wowed by this game, the first part on a technical level. So what did you think
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, I no, you hit that right. The way it just keeps you, and you like variety, the way it keeps variety going, not necessarily in terms of like you're doing new gameplay things, but there's variety in terms of you're literally constantly seeing a new version of a room or a hallway or a whatever, right? And so this isn't a spoiler. This is just part of the story. So essentially, this first part is called the painter, and you play literally as that, a painter who unfortunately has had some family downfall, we'll just call it, and it's him painting his magnum opus. I'm not going to say any more than that, but it delves into very, very deep psychological horror, very touchy themes at times, and it's very a challenging story. But here's what I'll say: the first Layers of Fear from years and years ago, this may be like a hot take, is one of my favorite horror games. Period. But again, I like that walking sim style. I love going to haunted houses, like haunted attractions. So for me, Layers of Fear feels like a gamified haunted attraction. I can get why you wouldn't like that because there's not as much gameplay. It's literally walking. But what they did with this 2023 reimagining is they completely reshaped it. It's so different than the first game, where I kept expecting to see the same things that I remembered, and it constantly changed it, whether that was the environment or a little puzzle or how you interact with the stage or when the door shifts or whatever. They completely reimagined it to where if you thought you knew something from the previous one, they changed that on you. I'm going to do one spoiler. This is a jump scare spoiler.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it now, because so if you don't want a scare spoiler, click off, come back in a couple minutes. Did you get scared by when you turn around and by the book monster, where you turn around and all the books just go? Do you even
I
remember
I
that?
don't really the moment that spooked me the most from the game was, honestly, I got the first encounter with an enemy threat, we'll just say. That was the first time I got really spooked by the game because I didn't think that that was in the game at all. I
It
didn't think
wasn't.
there. Oh,
It wasn't in the
okay.
first one.
Okay. Yeah, that was the first time I was like, "Oh my God, okay, I did not see that coming." And then the voice and the kind of the how they played with the audio there, that kind of spooked me out a little bit. But that would I really wasn't scared at all by the game. It was constantly just impressive to me. But yeah, dive a
Okay.
little bit more into that library monster. What got you with that?
The only reason I bring that up is because a lot of channels that have done like let's plays or live streams of Layers of Fear, there's this moment where, again, it's a spoiler, so if you don't want to hear it, click off for a minute. There's in the original game, there's this room that you walk into, like this kind of creepy library, kind of gothic room. And you walk up to like this painting on the wall. There's like a hand that kind of like looks like it's coming out of the painting. And so you're immersed in this moment of seeing this hand like moving out of the painting. And then when you turn around, just like you turn around in any game, all of a sudden there's this pile of books that like looks like it's like a creature. Then all of a sudden just goes poof, and it doesn't sound scary, but in the moment you're so connected by, and this is the first game, you're so connected by what's happening in this painting, you won't even think that there's going to be something behind you. I was so ready for that moment in this new game. It happened at a completely different time and gave me the jump scare all over again. So that's where I wanted to tie it back into the point of they take what you expected, but then swapped it to a new area or reimagined it completely, which to me was revolutionary because they could have just kept it in the same spot. But you don't even remember that, it sounds like. So
I don't even remember that taking place. That's so bizarre. I don't remember that section at all. And
okay.
I loved the library. So that was like my favorite point from the painter's story. I loved that entire section. It's weird to me too that it feels almost, once again, like I'm sure this is a main section that everybody has and it just isn't clicking with my brain, but it almost feels that you can experience different things in Layers of Fear that like maybe someone else wouldn't experience, because like I said, you're going down these corridors and every door you enter almost makes it feel like a decision that you're making. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm going to go down this path. And I don't know, it could be once again the illusion of choice, but I if you're doing it this well to where I feel like, okay, now I'm not able to go back to this door. And like I enjoy that sense of choice and that sense of like, what am I missing on this other end? Which it could be nothing. And once again, that's the great thing about playing with choice and playing with the illusion of choice in a horror game like this. I think they did that really well by making it feel like you had a little bit of agency from where you go and what you see. It kind of felt like your own story. And I know they have multiple endings, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah, there are multiple endings. I'm glad that you mentioned the player agency, because the changes, for anyone wondering who also played the first, to your point, the changes that are overarching, and these aren't, well, actually, well, you already mentioned, doesn't matter now. So the changes, yeah, the first game didn't have that many choices. It was very much linear. That was a surprise. So again, this shouldn't really be a spoiler because they've kind of shown it in trailers, but the fact that there's now an entity, that's all I'll say, that wasn't in the first game. You know how you get the lantern now?
Yeah.
Also wasn't in the first game. So they kind of gamified it more, which to me actually felt more like a hindrance. I wish they didn't add the entity. I wish they didn't add the lantern. For me, it just took away some of the more raw walking through this haunted house experience. However, I can see how it makes it a little bit more of a game, I guess. So I guess it does add some, but then it sounds like in this chapter 2 or whatever, the actor story on the ship, it sounds like everything just becomes really generic or like just kind of like lackluster from what you've said, right? For the most part.
I wouldn't say that. It's just
Okay.
it's once again, I have to be very, very clear. I loved that first half. So the fact that it was a few steps back for me, it didn't mean I hated the second half or thought it was, just not up to snuff. It was just like not on par with the first part of the game. That painter story was absolutely excellent in my opinion. And it was just it wasn't quite as good as the first part. To go back for a second for what you were talking on before about the adding the entity. See, once again, the kind of differences there is that was like my favorite part of the game. I
Okay.
loved having that voice in my head and running around and trying to find, the little cogs to turn the wheel, and this entity is charging at me and I never know where they're coming from, and I'm having to keep my lantern prepared at all times. And just the looping nature of sort of the environments that they created where you're having to run from this character.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really enjoyed how that was set up. Not to spoil anything for you, I did not like how they did it in the part 2. you use a flashlight, and I think the mechanic is really cool with the flashlight that you use, and I won't go too much into that, but
Mhm.
how they use the mechanic with the flashlight ends up kind of playing out as like a film reel, and
Hmm.
you have these interactions with mannequins, and that is really cool to see that play out. And it's, once again, you're changing, you're shifting the world on the fly, but it just wasn't nearly, the threat wasn't nearly as intimate, wasn't nearly as scary as the threat in the painter story. Also,
Okay.
weird tie here. I know this came out way before the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing, but I was constantly thinking about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing while playing through the painter story, because there's so much of that kind of,
Ah.
that crazy, uh, can I say the thing about a finger, cutting off a finger, and
You already said it now, so sure. You already said it
and,
now.
and drawing on walls with your blood and stuff. It's like, okay. Which, once again, this came out before that, and I'm sure all of these tortured artists have these ridiculous, stupid relationships where it's
I'm sure.
just an absolute hellscape to deal with. But it
Yeah.
felt very. I was like, oh my God, are they pulling from this? But once again, it came out before that trial. But my brain constantly kept going back. It's like, yeah, well, am I going to find a damn turd in the bed here? What we got going on?
but but I think that's a great point though, because it just points to the variety in the game and how they clearly know how to constantly provide psychological scares and provide that variety that you like, where you really just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
More so in the first section. But I have a question for you, and this isn't, it's kind of a tangent, but kind of not, because of the development team, Bloober team. How do you? I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. So the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake, which we don't know really too much about. So Bloober team is the one doing this. How do you feel, at least having played this Layers of Fear reimagining? Does this give you more hope that, like, wow, they know how to create a creepy world? Does it give you less hope? I'm just curious from your perspective. How does that make you feel about them handling the upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake? That's maybe a little bit too tangential for us kind of like reviewing this game, but
No. Yeah, no, it's
I'm
that's
just
that's a
curious of your thought.
that's a totally, that segment totally ties in. It's hmm. Okay. Once again, there is next to no gameplay here. And which I one totally vibed with in that first part of the game. It was a-okay with me. But Silent Hill, I don't know how Bloober is going to handle gunplay and the third person movement. Like, these are things with, like, the medium was a third person perspective, but once again, no gameplay really going on there. No, especially no combat. And I should say no combat, not no gameplay. There's gameplay, but
Right.
no combat. I haven't seen Bloober execute combat at all. And that's still the main question mark for me. If they can nail that, I have no worries about Bloober executing on the atmosphere with Silent
Hmm.
Hill. Not to be disrespectful here, but Bloober has developed games that I think are just as atmospheric as any of the Silent Hill games. They are excellent, excellent with that. You got, in my opinion, the first part of Layers of Fear 1 of what we played, that's about as good of atmospheric horror as I've ever seen in my life.
Hmm. I mean, that's cool to hear you say that, because I honestly didn't, going into this day, I didn't know how, I really just didn't know how you feel about it. So that's cool to hear that. I agree with you completely, though. I think that they nail atmosphere perfectly. And as we know, Silent Hill, we won't keep going on the Silent Hill thing much longer, but um, Silent Hill is so much about atmosphere. So
Yeah.
that if they can at least bring that side of it, it was just cool to hear your perspective of their atmosphere. I want to ask one last quick thing about the story, real quick, if you don't mind. So the overarching story of this lighthouse, there's this woman who's trying to write again, trying not to keep it spoilers, who's trying to write a story. It's like a mother and son thing on a phone call. They're figuring out things. She's at this lighthouse. It's very vague, but it kind of ties all the stories together. Like, she's the overarching omniscient one, if you will. Did you like these connecting dots of this lighthouse story and this woman who's writing the overarching part? Did that feel like it connected things for you? Did it feel like it wasn't necessary? I'm just kind of, because that's not obviously in the first games. So I'm just curious
Oh,
how that
okay.
felt to you, this
Well,
overarching narrative.
so what I'll say is, like, that theme continues throughout part two and throughout the actor story. And I really, really started to appreciate it later on. I really wasn't sure what was going on at first, but then I completely, well, I shouldn't say completely got it, because I think a lot of it's up to your own interpretation of the story. Like they, if I had any complaints with the story at all, is, and once again, this comes from my dude bro Fast and Furious appreciation of the arts, but there it's a very, very vague story, and the revelations are all in your mind of you know, as the player, kind of figuring out, painting your own story, which, you know, obviously ties together with all the artistic themes that we're exploring here. And it, but if my only thing with the story is, I kind of wish that they could give you a little bit more of a bow at the end to wrap things up. But once again, I do appreciate the fact that you're interpreting the story how you wish, especially with that first part. The second was a little bit more wrapped up and felt more conclusive to me, but the first part, it is very much your own interpretation. And from the writer's perspective, really, I'll say really, really impressed with that conclusion as well. So yeah, I enjoyed having that connective thread, and the sort of muse, and the whole, you know, just in this lighthouse that feels constantly like decaying and corrupted, and using that as your energy source to allow you to write. Like, yeah, it felt like its own element of horror that was detached but connected to the two bigger plots.
Okay. That's cool to hear that. I like to hear that your perspective on it as someone that's new. I guess to kind of, and let me know if there's any other questions. I guess to kind of reviewify this, as we're trying to at least provide an overall context. Is this a game, this 2023 or reimagining, is this a game that you would personally recommend to people, based either if they're horror fans, just game fans? Like, would you recommend people spend money on it? Do you think it's a game that is going to provide, like, what's your overall recommendation if you had to have one for this game?
Yeah, it's only $30. It's $29.99 if I'm not mistaken, right?
And I should have mentioned this to you before. If you own the first two games, it's less. It was, for me, it was $20 on Xbox
Oh wow. Wow,
because I own
that's,
the first two games. That was a huge surprise. It was like $20.99. So just FYI.
yeah, that's I mean, for $20, absolutely pick this thing. I would say $30. Even the first half alone, let me be clear. This is a meaty game. This got some meat on its bones, man. We're talking about the first part of the game's probably 4 or 5 hours, and then the next part's probably, you know, 4 or 5 hours or so. Like, you're talking about an 8 to 10 hour game here. And you get the DLC added on with the inheritance story and something else, which I haven't played those yet. But
Mm-hmm.
the main chunks of the game, you're talking about an 8-ish hour adventure for $30. So the only, like, there were a few little nitpicks I had. I
Yeah.
thought that the whenever, like, you would pick up a note and it would totally cut off the speaker, the kind of you know, inner monologue or whatever was going on, any sort of speaking that was going on, you would pick up a note and it would start reading from the note, which I do like. I like that the notes are all narrated in the first part of the game, which is not so much in the second part, which is weird. But the
Yeah, it
the
is.
yeah, the notes are all narrated, so you really just, you know, if you don't want to read anything, you really don't have to read much of anything, which, you know, is wonderful. But the unfortunate thing there is it'll cut off, like, if some big moments being presented to you in the story and you pick up a note, it'll cut off the speaker for the main part of the story and start reading the note, and then for me it wouldn't go back to speaking in the main narrative. And also, a lot of the in terms of the dialogue in general, it felt jumpy. Like, it felt like the
Mm.
speaker would, and it didn't feel like it had like natural pauses, which,
Okay.
you know, it's not huge complaints, but those would be kind of my only two complaints, along with the second part not being quite up to on par with the first part of the game, in my opinion.
Okay. No, that's good. I mean, those are the things I think people want to also know if they're going to be spending their money. On a quick side thing, because I know some people are interested in this, the first Layers of Fear, I keep going back to it because, again, it's still the first game and the second one reimagined. It's not completely new. The first game, at least on Xbox, just didn't have good performance. The frame rate was abysmal. Like,
Oh
it
wow.
was constantly all over the place until they eventually fixed it. For anyone wondering, this new version, at least in my experience, you can tell me otherwise, on Series X, flawless. I didn't encounter any. The only issue, actually, I lied. The only issue I did encounter was there's like this section where you have to pick up telephones, and then you have to like put in numbers on a rotary phone. That for me glitched a
Yeah.
couple times. Did that happen for you, where like it didn't always
Yep.
like spin right, or you had to reset it or something?
Yeah, yeah. You
Okay.
would type in the number correctly, and it would either like it wouldn't pull far enough when you're holding down R or the right trigger or whatever. Yeah, that happened to me as
Yeah.
well.
But above and beyond that, the game feels great, and there is a quality mode and a performance mode. Some people like to know that in the options menu. If you want to choose with even the best visuals, you can do a 30 FPS mode, and then you can also do the performance mode, which is how I played 60 FPS. So just know a lot of people do care, especially when it's a first person game.
Yeah.
The frame rate, at least on Series X, is that where you played it?
Yep. Played it on Series X.
Is flawless. Yeah. So just that's at least a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
I would recommend this game again. Full transparency, I've only played the first half of this one, so I can't take that with a grain of salt, if you will, then, since I haven't played the back half yet. But as someone that played the original ones, even with just the painter story alone,
Yes.
yes, just fully yes, I would recommend this if you're a horror fan. So
Well, okay. So let me ask you this. If you
okay.
I think that painter story, that to me feels like a full game. You know what I mean? So from the perspective of just that first story, we're just being silly here. This isn't something we're taking to Metacritic, but if you had to jot it down 1 to 10, what would you say that first story would land at on a 1 to 10 rating for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, for me, that's easily a 9 or 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the atmosphere, the scares, I mean, that's subjective, but the atmosphere, the scares, the story, the way it just pulls you into it hour by hour. And there's separate chapters you can go back and explore. Like, just the way they weave it all together for me is a near perfect experience, even with a couple of those little like phone bugs and things. So I
Yeah.
would give it close to a 10 if it was me. I know that's high, but I love it. So
Yeah.
what about you? How would you give the first one, and how would you give the whole package then, having played it?
Right. That's a very important distinction there. The first part I agree. To me, that's like a legitimate, 8.5, 9-ish out of 10. Like it's up there. That is some of the best, like I said, best atmospheric horror that I've ever experienced, some of the best psychological horror that I've ever experienced, and probably to this point the most technically impressive horror game that I've ever played. Like, very, very high praise across the board. Obviously, I'm not talking technical performance and you're running and jumping and ducking and dodging and doing all this at 60. It's not that. It's just from an artistic standpoint, the way that they're swapping, weaving in and out of these different worlds, and all of them having their own unique artistic integrity and tact. Like, it's so impressive on that front. So that's a 8.59 on the first half for me. The second is 6.57 to me. 6.5 to 7.5. I would no 6.5 to 7 to me. Yeah, it's a big, 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 big drop, but it's still not bad. So I think it rounds out to me at like a low-ish 8 or so.
Okay. There you go. I think that's pretty comprehensive. And unless you have anything else to say about it, that I think is kind of, we just wanted to try to like take a deep dive, would do kind of a review, if you will. So if you guys like this, obviously, like, you want to see us kind of play a game together from different perspectives, let us know, because it's kind of fun to kind of do a review, if you want to call it that. But I don't know. I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no,
Hopefully it
that
helped someone.
yeah, yeah. I hope that I hope you kind of enjoy the more deep, comprehensive deep dives. I would like to do more of these for sure. And obviously, with more time to prepare for one, we can really get into the weeds and structure this thing out. But yeah, I enjoyed that game, and I'm glad that if it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have played it. So I'm glad that you recommended the first one so highly. And that first one, boy, I loved the hell out of that. So 29.99, or yeah, 29.99 if I'm not mistaken.
That's the regular price. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
$30 basically in the US. So
highly recommend that at 29.99. It's that's a good price just for that first part alone. That first part I would say is worth $30 to me. So,
and I think the Bluebird team, if you're watching, we're going to take your tagline, Brandon. This Layers of Fear 2023 is a great game if you don't like reading. Keep smoothing. Keep smoothing, baby.
Keep smoothing. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the second part, you got to do some reading. So it defuncted my lizard brain there. I couldn't just scroll, but it was a damn good experience to me overall, man.
All right. Well, we still got a lot of show left. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Well, if anyone didn't want to listen that long, I guess you can just click over. But that was that. So where do you want to go from here, man? We got a lot of show left, I feel like.
Well, we actually only got what, 2 more segments, so we're not doing two.
No, we got 3 more segments, but all right.
We got 3. Oh yeah, we do got 3. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
No, it's fine. We're having fun. If you guys don't enjoy certain parts, skip over it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
Stamps,
Do you?
Timestamps will always be there for you, but we are heading into a new segment that we're presenting to you today. It's I'm so pumped for this. I'm so pumped for this. I think that this is going to be a good time. Hit us with your feedback on this. Let us know what you think of this segment. But we're calling it Console Wars, and don't worry, it's not stupid, silly Twitter console wars.
Oh, I hate Switch. I hate Xbox. I hate PlayStation.
We're creating a little game here today, and Jeffrey and I, we got off the phone with our billionaire buddies. We had a couple billionaires hit us up. And they said, "Hey, look, we know y'all are in the weeds. We know you love some video gaming." They hit us up and they said, "Look, we need you to be essentially the Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan of our companies." They were on the golf course playing some golf, and they started getting into a debate about who would be the better video game console manufacturer, who would be the better publisher, who would put out the higher quality games. They're talking about the nostalgia. They're talking about the glory days of video gaming, and they're like, we got all this money. Why don't we create our own consoles? Why don't we get into the console marketplace? And they're just shooting it back and forth and then taking it lightly, but the drinks keep pouring, the drinks keep flowing throughout the day on the golf course. And then by the end of the day, they're on the phone with their lawyers. They got a full contract ready to go, and then they call us up. And I'll go ahead and reveal my billionaire that hit me up. Mr. Jay-Z gets on the line with me. He hits me up and he says, "Look, well, I want you to be the Jim Ryan. I want you to be the Jim Ryan of my new console that I'm launching. We need you to go in there, create a subscription service for me. Do some. We need you to get in the weeds and create a brand new IP. Design this console for me." Jay-Z's like, "I don't have a lot of time, man. You got to do this for me." So essentially. Obviously. To keep the silliness at bay for a second, where Jeffrey and I are creating 2 consoles, and we are going to be competing week in and week out with some console warfare. That sound decent, Jeffrey?
Done. No, don't just sabotage your confidence like that. You should just sabotage all of that confidence that you had. I should say these are not real. These aren't going to be real consoles. Disclaimer, asterisk, product not sold on. What's that rapper guy that made like a real console?
Soulja Boy.
Yeah, I feel like, because there's going to be someone in the comments going to be like, "Oh, this is real." No, we're not making real ones. So if you thought that, stop it. This is for fun. We're having fun. Dang it.
Well,
they are real. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Jay-Z actually did hit me up.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Me and Jay-Z, we go way back.
Okay. Well, then I should say my investment is Britney Spears.
Nice.
Yeah, we don't go way back, like a couple of years back, but met in Hollywood. When I was on did a YouTube video, interviewed her, her favorite games, obviously, and so Britney Spears, same. She's like, "Hey, we need more games, we need more consoles. I'm too busy doing what I do, I guess, music. I don't know what she does anymore, but I need to be better friends with her." But yeah, so also she wants a console as well, so it's warfare time, baby.
Hell yeah. So it's back to the 2000s, as everyone will remember. Britney Spears versus Jay-Z, as it always was. That classic
VH1 MTV battle.
As it was always intended to be. They're participating in some console guerrilla warfare, if you will. But we were setting the stage simple today. we're launching our consoles, and we'll give the names for our consoles here in a second. But before we do that, we're letting people know, hey, the consoles, they launch July 1st. Go to your local stores, pick up the consoles on July 1st. But we want you to know that when we launch these consoles, you're going to have a nice subscription service available for you with day one third-party titles ready to go, competing with Game Pass out the gate. We're getting all the big boys. They got all sorts of investors. Britney Spears went and got her investors. Jay-Z went and got their. They're opening up the checkbooks. We're spending trillions of dollars each week on this console, and we expect to make all that money back. But
so you better buy it. Everyone better buy as many of these as possible.
Go out and buy the consoles. But
yes,
before we get into that, let's announce the names of our systems that we're creating here. What did Britney Spears come up with to name her console, Mr. Jeffrey?
It's a classy name.
Okay.
It's a name that will easily roll off the tongue.
Okay.
It's a name you will never forget.
Okay.
I tried to be. I can't. I'm trying to be so serious about how awful it is. Mine is called the MacGuffin box.
Ooh.
Again, everyone. No one will forget the MacGuffin box. So that's what it's called. So MacGuffin box. Get ready. Thank you, Britney Spears. That was her idea. She takes full credit for it. She said,
"Yeah, I gotta say, mine comes straight from the billionaire's mouth himself as well. I'm calling mine the Renegade from the 2000 and oh boy, 2003, the track where Jay-Z, a renegade, I'm afraid to say
that was very, I'm sure that's exactly how it sounds. Yes. That was beautiful.
Whatever that song is with Jay-Z and Eminem. I'm pulling from one of his classic tracks that I can't remember any of the words to, but we're calling it the Renegade. And it's
spicy.
The Renegade and the MacGuffin are launching.
No, it's the MacGuffin box. Don't forget box, you heathen.
Sorry. The MacGuffin box and the Renegade are launching on July 1st. But before to get serious here, what we're doing is
you can't say that. It's never serious. All right, yes, very serious.
We're drafting the games of July here today. So the biggest games that are releasing July 2023, we're putting them on our subscription service that's launching July 1st. And we're drafting the games of July, the biggest, most anticipated titles. To be serious, I was doing, we were doing the monthly look ahead each month of the games coming out in July, the games coming out in August. And I just wanted to do something a little spicy to mix it up a little bit, to have some fun with it. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to do other things as well. We're thinking about doing a revival draft where we go in and revive dead games and bring them back, and we bring them to our console stuff. It's just a silly way to create, fun little back and forth banter like this. But for this July draft, it's very serious and it's very competitive, Jeffrey. Don't you forget it. What the stakes are here is that August, when we come in at the end of August to do this again, we're going to look over our lists, and whoever has the highest overall Metacritic average from the games we drafted in July, that's they're the victor. And they get an extra couple $1 trillion to invest with their console the next month. So it's a Metacritic battle of sorts. We're battling for Metacritic supremacy here on the console warfare.
We are. So this is very serious. So we can't joke around anymore. No more laughter and smiling. We have to get into the weeds now.
No more laughter. Yeah, no more laughter at all. But I don't know how should we. Oh, okay. If a game if a game is delayed, how do you want to do that? You want to do like subtract 2 points from the overall score for anybody that gets a delayed game or whatever?
Yeah, that seems fair.
Okay.
I mean, I guess that's. I don't know. Yes, for the purposes of this, but that feels kind of unfair because at the end, usually it means it's going to probably be at least a more polished, better game. But sure, we have to make this somewhat like work so we don't completely lose our minds with math and things. So sure, let's say subtract 5.
Subtract 5.
Yeah, we're gonna get real spicy.
Okay, subtract 5 for any game delayed out of the
Ooh.
month. And obviously we'll refresh this, go over it next month and
Yeah.
see what we're thinking about things. But Jeffrey, you know what, man? Jay-Z is so confident. He said, let Britney Spears get the first pick for this draft. I want to hear from you. What is your first pick of all the games coming out in July? What is the first pick that you are adding to your subscription service that launches in July 1, 2023?
Yes. Well, I'm myself as well as Britney Spears. We're both very confident in this upcoming game. It's going to obviously get 100 on Metacritic. So there's no, don't even if it gets delayed, it's still just going to get 100. Don't even worry about it. That's going to be July 28th. So I'm picking a late bloomer. That's going to be
Ooh.
Disney Illusion Island. So for you platforming fans out there who want to do some co-op 2D platforming, Disney Illusion Island, July 28th, looks like for Switch. I don't know. No, I lied. Not Switch, obviously. Not Switch. It's obviously coming to the MacGuffin box. Wait, are we actually saying what platforms it's coming
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
as
We
well?
could, yeah, we could talk about what platforms are coming to, just in case people are wondering.
Yeah, this is going to get confusing. But yeah, so Disney Illusion Island. That's the one I'm putting on there first. So don't take that from us.
All right, man. So Disney
Okay,
Illusion Island is your number one pick. For me, I
what do
got
you
to
got?
go with the heart here. I got to go Immortals of Avium. I'm really excited for this damn title, man. Uh, First person magic going on. I'm hoping for a nice linear campaign here. I believe it's only coming to next gen consoles and PC, if I'm not mistaken, for Immortals of Avium. But yeah, I'm expecting big things with this. Would I be totally surprised if it, doesn't quite hit the I'm expecting low to mid eights. If it gets somewhere in the mid eights, I'll be very, very happy with Immortals of Avium. But I got to go with the heart. Immortals of Avium is going to be my first pick for the games of July.
Cool. All right, there you go. You heard it here. The next one I'm going to take is going to be Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. Right now, all platforms, July 12th. So this is obviously the follow up to the first Oxenfree, which is kind of a narrative based point and clicky adventure spookathon, kind of like a coming of age story, but all about supernatural goings on. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know too much about the second one, Lost Signals, but the first game leaned very much into this like radio signal horror and communicating with other beings that way. So really good writing. So yeah, we're gonna be taking Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals, July 12th, all platforms that we know of, at least right now.
Not yeah, that I think that would have been my second choice as well. Looking here,
Well, not now.
I think I would have to go with, for me, number two. I got it. I think I'm going to take Pikmin 4.
Oh, you stole that.
Yeah, I'm not like, I don't know anything about the series. Like I'm not a big Nintendo guy, but these games perform pretty well on average. And obviously this is coming to Switch exclusively. I really don't know much about Pikmin. Are you a big Pikmin fan?
Not even in the slightest. But I would have Pikmined it because it's I would assume it'll review well because people do love it. I just don't like good things apparently.
Yeah, yeah, no, people do love it. The first three games have all performed really well. So I'm taking it. This is a choice that's not necessarily from the heart, but this is a choice that is very much I want the win, and Pikmin 4 should deliver me victory.
There you go. All right. Okay, I'm gonna take a gamble here.
All right.
All right. I'm not a gambling man, but I'm gonna take a gamble. So Remnant 2 comes out on July 25th for next gen and PC. So Remnant 2, again, the follow up to the first Remnant. I forgot the subtitle, but it's basically, again, I feel like I should have researched better, but Remnant 2 is going to be a co op, seemingly, third person shooter, blending like a lot of different elements of, I don't know. There's elements of fantasy, sort of like steampunk, but then like horror, but then it's basically just a co-op third person shooter. The first one had roguelite elements. I don't know if the second one is supposed to, but I'm on the fence. I'll be honest. I don't know how this is going to do. I know people do like the first one quite a bit. It
Yeah.
has a cult following, so I'm going to take a gamble on Remnant 2. Again, coming currently July 25th.
Yeah, the first one has some real supporters out there, some diehard Remnant fans. So I think that's a smart pick. Similar actually kind of opposite here. I'm going with the heart, as we went with Pikmin 4 for the results, to get the money, to get the bag, to get the points. I'm going with the heart here because I really want this to be good. Not because I even care so much about this game in particular. I care about the next game that will follow it. And I'm going with the Expanse from Telltale. I want this to do good. I want this to review well so that we can get The Wolf Among Us 2. That's pretty much it. I'm actually going to buy The Expanse day one just to throw some extra bucks at Telltale's way to ensure that we get The Wolf Among Us 2. I'm craving The Wolf Among Us 2. I want to see the follow-up to that story. But The Expanse, it's similar in that Telltale vein. It seems to have some big choices that you're making in your Telltale nature. And yeah, it looks a little bit more expansive than what we've seen from Telltale games in the past. So curious. I think the art style's a little better as well. I'm curious to see if reviewers will go for this in this day and age. I mean, supermassive games do okay on the review scales, but they always kind of tend to be in that like mid to low 70s range. So I'm hoping that this doesn't follow suit, but I'm definitely hoping it's not any worse than the low to mid 70s.
Cool. It's a good choice. I'm actually not when I saw this on here, it wasn't one I was familiar with. So I'm glad you put it on my radar. I've still never even played tangentially The Wolf Among Us, and I always hear how darn good it is, but I still haven't played it. So maybe dive into that at some point here. So
Yeah, you would. I think you'd like that a lot. It's really really good.
I'm gonna I feel torn here because there's three left for me, and we're only choosing two more. There's three more I want to choose, but I'm gonna okay. I'm gonna choose. This isn't so much of a full-on game, but more of an add-on to an extent. But I think it's gonna be cool. So Sea of Thieves is doing a Legend of Monkey Island add-on. And that's pretty reductive because the way Sea of Thieves, and I'm not really a Sea of Thieves player, mostly because I don't have friends and I don't know how to do that. You're my friend, Brandon. I guess technically that counts. But so Sea of Thieves is doing a Legend of Monkey Island add-on, and their add-ons in this game aren't just like, here's some cosmetics, here's like one quest. They're full on like story campaigns to new islands and new customization things and new ways to play and new like just basically whole new like additional storylines. I'm not like a massive Legend of Monkey or just Monkey Island fan in general, the old point and click games. I know there's a newer one, but people do love Monkey Island if you're a point and click fan. And it just seems like a match made in heaven for Sea of Thieves, Rare to incorporate Monkey Island. So that's going to be Xbox and PC. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think people are going to like it because Monkey Island's pretty beloved. And Sea of
Yeah,
Thieves has been going on forever now, and people still adore that game because it came a long way. So I'm gonna
yeah,
go with that.
that's like one of the most successful live service games on the market that people just kind of don't really give enough credit to. It's yeah, that thing is doing great numbers and has a real fanfare for it. So
And the water in that game, oh boy, it looks so good. The ocean,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it looks. I'll just jump into that game, not even to play it, but just to stand on the bow of my pathetic pirate ship and play my hurdy gurdy and just stare at the ocean until I vomit from getting seasick. So, all right, what do you got next, man? What's your next one?
I think for my next pick here, I'm gonna have to go with. I'm gonna go similar to you here. I don't know how safe this is though, because PlayStation has had some awful PC ports. I'm gonna go with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, the PC port for it. I I'm skeptical on this because the Last of Us PC port was absolutely abysmal. I think that this is being done
Yeah,
by I think this is being done by Nixus, if I'm not mistaken. And the Last of Us PC port was done by Naughty Dog and also another team that has historically had some issues with their PC ports. But
okay.
I'm hoping that this will I'm hoping that this will turn out a lot better for Rift Apart. If it does turn out to be the same game that I played on the PlayStation 5 or something similar in that in the quality aspect, it will do really really well. It's an amazing game. Absolutely loved it in 2021, and I'm hoping that I can just pad some points here with my Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart pick.
It's a safe bet, and I wanted to go with that because it does feel like a safe bet because Rift Apart is phenomenal, and it's still so funny that you think games are built on PCs. I mean, maybe I just don't know this, but games are generally built on PCs. But then when you bring a port to a PC, it never seems to work as well. It just, because they optimize it for console a lot of times.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't, but I'm not smart enough to understand the behind the scenes development.
Nor am I, but it is very, I guess it's just because there's so many different SKUs, there's so many different PCs that they have to prioritize for, uh opposed to just having, a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. And like I'm imagining having to prioritize so that wide range of PCs can cause some issues there. But who
Yeah,
am I? I
sure.
don't know.
Who are you? You are Brandon.
Who
Who
are
you?
you?
Oh boy. All right, my next one, I guess last one. We're on five, right? So my last one, I feel weird talking about this one because technically it's a game that's already out that I don't even know what the review score is, but it was a Stadia exclusive.
Yeah.
Everyone knows. Actually, maybe this is bad luck talking about a Stadia thing because we're launching new things, But anyway, there's a game that came on Stadia. It was an exclusive to Stadia, and it was a horror game called Guilt, spelled Gylt, because they want to be really, really hip. I remember when I saw Guilt come out way back when Stadia first, I mean, a few years ago, launched, and I was like, man, I really want to play this little quirky looking horror game. I'll try pretty much any little quirky horror game. I don't even know much about it, but it like plays a little kid and you explore like these spooky, I don't know, like locations. It's like a puzzle adventure game. But I was so sad when it was a Stadia exclusive. So coming July 6th, so very soon, it's actually coming to all platforms, looks like, except for Switch. So they're finally bringing it elsewhere where hopefully it gets more love. I'll be honest, I don't even know what the scores are for the Stadia version, but I just so badly want this game to be fun and good because I love a quirky horror game. So Guilt July 6th. Do you have the score pulled up?
No,
It looks
I
like you were
don't.
looking at the score. Okay.
No. But I am curious about this game. I think I did look up the score before. I believe it was like mid sixes or high sixes, if I'm not mistaken. But
Okay.
platform, it's very, I feel like it could turn the tides a little bit with it not launching on, it came out on a platform that nobody used. And
Yeah.
I think that there's almost like this negativity associated with the platform in general with Stadia, where it's like easier to shit on any exclusive game just because it's Stadia exclusive. Like, I'm not saying that, reviewers sought out to do that or whatever, but it's just, I wonder if giving it new legs on a new platform will help it at all. I'm actually kind of curious about this one as well, man.
The only thing that keeps me a little bit concerned about it, there was a game that I don't think anyone's heard of, on PlayStation 4 called In Nightmare. And it looks very similar. Like you play as this kid exploring a haunted mansion. I don't remember anyone talking about it. It wasn't even really that good. That's the vibes I get with Guilt. However, obviously it's a completely different game and studio. But anyway, it's a gamble one, but man, I just want it to be good. So we're gonna give it a shot. July 6th.
Yeah. I want it to be good
All right.
too. I for my
What do you got?
final I'm I'm torn between two, and then we'll give a couple shout outs here in a second to some other kind of bigger titles that are coming out in July to keep on your radar. But I think I'm gonna go Viewfinder here.
Hmm.
This is a independent puzzle solving first person perspective game where the environments and the world is kind of shape shifting all the time. It's really, really unique from a mechanical perspective. And I've heard people were really hot on it at Summer Game Fest. Like, it had a demo. I heard people were really hot on it. So this is one that could backfire a little bit. I don't know much about this game at all, but from what I've seen of it, it just looks totally, totally different. Like, you're swapping out world environments and being able to like traverse new locations and solve puzzles that way. It looks very, very intriguing. And I do believe Viewfinder is only on PS5 and PC, unfortunately. But yeah, that's one that I'm very, very curious about.
I When I saw this one on the list, yeah, it wasn't one I remember from the Summer Games Fest stuff. So this may be a really silly question, but I want to. But when I think Viewfinder, because I'm old, I'm 36. When I think Viewfinder, I remember back in the day, like these little like slide things you put in, and you like click them, and it like had little like shutter like things that you would see come across it, like little pictures. Was that part of this trailer or anything, or am I just an idiot for thinking that's what a Viewfinder is in terms of this game?
I do believe they, yeah, I think that it does have something to do with this
Okay.
object that you're using, you're holding it up, and that's how you're shape shifting the world around you, if I'm not mistaken. I'm a little bit younger than you. I'm 28, so I don't have quite as much memory of this viewfinder object, but I do believe that it does revolve around you holding something up and in shape shifting the world and shape shifting the perspective with that object.
Ooh, I'm sold. That sounds awesome. Cool. All right. Well, those are our 5 ones that we're are kind of sticking out to us. Obviously, we should say before we jump into a few of the other ones, there's lots more games than what we're going to mention here that are going to A, shadow drop, B, tons of indies that we'll miss out on. We're just trying to at least handpick the ones that jumped out the most that have definitive dates currently and platforms. So just keep in mind if there's something that you were really excited about. It's not that we didn't want to talk about, it's just that we can't cover every single game that comes out.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. But these games that we selected, they're all coming to our subscription service the day they launch. So no worries there. Go pick up your Renegade console and go pick up your uh
You already forgot the name of it. That's the problem for my console. It's called actually based on that yours is based on a Jay-Z song. Mine should just be called the Hit Me Baby One More Time box, I guess.
the hit me,
But it's
baby
not.
one more.
No, it's not. It's the MacGuffin box.
MacGuffin box and the Renegade consoles. Go pick them up July 1st. They'll be available. They'll be available worldwide. And then these games, when they launch, they're coming straight to our subscription services. Don't you forget it.
I need to talk to Britney Spears. We need a better PR team, or marketing team to think of better names for consoles here. Yours was good and memorable, at least.
Yeah, I think she could probably use a better PR team.
All right, listen here. Don't you talk about my business partner that way. You get out of here, man. You should respect your elders. I'm older than you. Get off my lawn. All right.
All right. So we're running through some other titles here that are notable. You wrote down Scarf, I believe, didn't you? Coming to PlayStation and Xbox. Was that one that caught your eye?
I mean, I can't say it's notable, but for me, so just for anyone that's new to this and me being here, my favorite genre, hands down, is, apart from horror, is 3D platformers. I will try any 3D platformer. I don't care how bad it is. Scarf looks like a really super charming 3D platformer. It also looks just kind of like an adventure game. It reminded me of the indie hit A Short Hike. There was another one called Little Gator Game that were just like these like open exploration, fun little platforming games that I adore. Scarf looks just like that. And you have a red scarf that's part of like your powers. And it just looked really charming. And that's coming on July 6th. Yeah, for PlayStation and Xbox. So I just wanted to throw a little love to a 3D platforming one by a small indie team.
Nice. I'm gonna give a shout out here to Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie. This is coming everywhere but Xbox. These games, they people love them. I don't know much about them, but people love. I know they're JRPGs, and I know that they have quite the following. So
cool. That's a good one. Do we want to run through each of the extra ones that we have? I know there's only a few more.
Yeah, there's only a couple more. So yeah, I was just gonna give them a quick shout out.
Okay, so the next one looks like July 14th is, and I don't know much about it. You'll have to tell me, is Exoprimal, which is coming everywhere but Switch. I don't actually even know what Exoprimal is. So what is it?
Oh, really? Yeah, this is Capcom's new service game. Here, their new attempt into the live service market, and you're going to be killing some dinosaurs. It seems you're battling dinosaurs, hordes and hordes of dinosaurs, and you're playing as like these mech characters, and yeah, you got some Street Fighter tie-ins as well that are launching at a later date, where Ryu's going to be beating up some dinosaurs and maybe shooting them. And sure, Capcom. Hey, Capcom's been doing well everywhere else. If they want to go and chase a quick bag, let's see if they can get it.
That sounds terribly generic, but okay. Wait, question is, why didn't they just do Dino Crisis then if they're doing dinosaur games? Seriously, Capcom, we love you, but get with it.
Dude, did you? I don't know if you remember the little image I sent you for the thumbnail that I was going to do for the console wars.
I don't look at anything you send me. So.
Damn.
That's how professional we are. I look at nothing. If you send it, I'm like, I'm out. But anyway, yes, I did look at the thumbnails, but was that Exoprimal?
Do you remember the redheaded lady that was on the cover?
Yes.
Looks just like not just like, but looks very similar to the Dino Crisis character. That's
shoot.
They're using that as a main character for Exoprimal, a game about shooting dinosaurs.
But do you think this may be way off? Do you think, because you know how a lot of big publishers will like test the waters to see if people might be interested in like a game coming back. Do you think this is their weird freaking way to like test the waters to see if people like dinosaur-y type games to see if Dino Crisis is coming back, or is that too much of a stretch?
If that is what Capcom's doing here, I will bang my head into a wall endlessly, man. That this is in no way, shape, or form should this in no way, shape, or form should be a reflection of Dino Crisis. This if this doesn't do well, it's because people don't want to play a live service version of slaughtering hordes of dinosaurs with generic like mech characters. People want actually Dino Crisis, a remake
Right.
of Dino Crisis, not a service game with dinosaurs. It's just but I wouldn't doubt if there's some sort of something there, some sort of influence there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Exoprimal, sure, it's a game.
It's a
All
game.
right. What's the here? I'll let you go on whatever last ones we have. Do we have any other ones? Or is
I
that it?
think that actually might be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Cool.
yeah, that's it, I think.
All right. Well, there you go. So make sure to pick up the ones we shouted out on Renegade. Well, actually, not on. Don't support Brandon's Renegade cons. This is a console wars. You better get it on the Hit Me Baby One More Time / MacGuffin box.
Hey, you want to spend your money with Jay-Z. You want to spend your money with Jay-Z. We got to go buy. No, he does. Yeah.
What?
He sold the Brooklyn Nets, I think. Because I remember he bought the Brooklyn. And we got to go and buy back the Brooklyn Nets. That's the goal. Where
Okay.
we're making money off our console to go back and buy the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay.
That's the dream here. That's what Jay-Z told me whenever he hit me up a
Okay.
couple days ago. So
Well, we have no goals and dreams, so maybe the Renegade box is a better option. Go buy that instead of mine.
hey, make me a billionaire. That's the dream here. I'm playing the Jim Ryan role. Make me a billionaire. We're gonna launch some live service games. But no, this uh I we're gonna have some fun with this topic here going forward. And we're really just gonna use it as a way to essentially do like little fantasy drafts week in and week out. Like next week, we'll do a silly reveal for our console. We'll draw you a little picture of what our console is gonna look like. We
Oh
just want to have,
gosh,
and
great.
I'm the worst. Like I'm literally the worst artist of all time. Worst artist of all time. So it's gonna be a good time. And we're also going to next week. We're gonna reveal a brand new IP that is launching with our console. So we're creating some stuff on the fly. Our dream game that we're launching with the console. And like I said, we'll do some revival drafts, reviving some dead games, and a bunch of cool stuff like that. It's just going to be a cool little segment to have like a back and forth fantasy draft style thing going on week in and week out. So
And also,
I
it just is a fun way to talk about upcoming games of the month without just the boring, like, here's what's coming out. Like, also a spicy, more, hopefully, you guys can let us know, I guess. Hopefully, just a more enjoyable way to talk about upcoming games, because there's plenty of lists and videos out there of what's coming out, and those are informative, but we're just trying to spice it up for you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole goal with this segment is just to do something a little bit different, something that hopefully you aren't seeing on every other video game podcast that's out there. So yeah, we're trying some new things out, man. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. All right.
And if you're new here, hey, thanks for being here. Make sure to subscribe. We really are trying our darndest to just make some fun content. We really want to just grow and have a great community we can engage with. We always put up a community poll each week where you can help. So just subscribe, share it around. We really just want to be, your fun little weekly place to talk about games, casual, and so yeah. There's our little shameless self plug. I don't care. It's not so shameless. All right.
Keep it smoothing, brother. Keep it smoothing.
Keep it smoothing. Woo, woo.
All right, so heading on into our next segment. What are we at now for time? 2 hours. Okay, yeah. Let's yeah. Let's run through this bad boy a little bit quicker here for our top 10 games of 2003. So 5 apiece that we'll run through, and then we'll give our quick honorable mention shout outs at the end. I'll go ahead and kick this off with my number 5.
Wait.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
And we're out. That's it. Mic drop. I can't because it's attached to something. But sorry to ruin all of your thunder there. I feel like I should preface, at least for the first couple of times we're doing this together, these are not going to be the top necessarily. These aren't necessarily going to be the top games of review scores or Metacritic, or the ones you see everywhere else. These are our personal top favorite games. That may be something you don't agree with. Maybe you will, but just keep that in mind. If you're like, wow, why is that on there? There are favorite games.
Yeah.
I feel
And
like I feel like I should say that because maybe I don't need to say it, but I feel like I should say it. Should I
yeah,
not say it? I already
I
said it. Whatever.
yeah, it's on the record now, brother. It can't go anywhere. Look, when I think I said this last, I don't remember, but whenever I put like in it, if I clip this out and put it into its own video, and I say top 10 best games of 2003, that's an algorithm play. I'm playing for the algorithm there. I'm hoping to pick up some traction, pick up some new viewers there. This is a top 10 favorite games of 2003. So that's the truth, the God's honest truth, where we got to play to the algorithm a little bit when we can. So that's the reason for the titling there. But yeah, our best games, our personal favorites, top 5 from or top 10 from 2003, 5 games a piece here. I don't know if we have any crossover going on, but I'll go ahead and kick off mine. Do you have something to say?
I'm sorry. I keep giving faces where it looks like I have to interrupt you. No, I wasn't going to say anything. I'll stop making faces. Apparently,
Nice.
go ahead, go ahead and say things. I keep stealing your thunder.
No, you're
Go
good,
ahead.
brother. Number 5 for me. I'm going with Silent Hill 3. Silent Hill 3 at the number 5 spot. I think that this game did so many things that I hadn't really seen in horror before this. I thought it played with your fear of heights really, really well. And maybe not quite as depraved as Silent Hill 2, but still very depraved, very dark, obviously. And yeah, I just Silent Hill 3 is actually my favorite of the Silent Hill games that I've played so far. I still need to play through 4 and the games that followed it, but out of I played 1, 2, and 3 so far. Silent Hill 3 is my favorite of the 3, which I know is definitely not the consensus, the popular opinion, but loved Silent Hill 3, man.
That's a solid pick. That's the only crossover game that I would have had, because when I saw you talk about it, that's one I would have thrown on there. It's a great game, and that's even from someone that hasn't beat it. I've beat Silent Hill 2, love that. Played all Silent Hill games, but 3 I haven't finished yet. Plan to, but it's a good one. So that's a solid shout. I would have had that one if you didn't. So you're newer to the Silent Hill series, correct? Just in general, correct?
Yeah, well, I played 1 as a kid, but I'd never finished it. My first time going through and finishing the games started in 2021, I believe. So I'm trying to go through like 1 a year, and Silent Hill 4 would be this year. I hope to play that in October.
Cool. All right, Silent Hill 3. So my first one, and this is gonna my disclaimer I just gave you a few minutes before we talked about Silent Hill 3 is gonna be ever present for my first pick, because no one ever will agree with this. But my number 5 is The Haunted Mansion. Yes, that's right. The Haunted Mansion, based on the Eddie Murphy movie from the early 2000s, a movie that is one of my favorite movies of all time. I've learned as I get older here, I just like things that I don't think anyone else likes because I'm just a weird idiot. But you know what? I'm older. I don't care anymore. I love that movie. So alongside the Eddie Murphy movie, which is great, by the way, they also made a Haunted Mansion game, and it's a blast. You're just going through the titular Haunted Mansion. You have to like reclaim the 999 ghosts if you've been on the ride or watched the movie or any of that jazz from Disney. I just adore the game. I've probably bought it like almost a dozen different times. And it also came with a movie ticket when it first came out, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So Haunted Mansion is my number 5 pick. I adore that game.
Yeah, I
think it's
remember.
right. Yeah, it's right. It's right here. It's right.
You got a copy of it?
Yes, I have a copy
Nice.
of it. How dare you? Anyway,
Nice.
yes. Also have sorry. Also have
Oh wow. So you're a real fan of
oh yeah.
Nice. Well, that's cool, man. Heck yeah. I remember when games used to come with like movie tickets. I believe one of the Spider-Man games did, maybe Spider-Man 3 on the PlayStation 2. I think it came with a ticket for Spider-Man 3 the movie. Like there were those weird tie-in games that were popping up quite often back then that would come with like movie tickets. I always did think that was cool to open up a box and see that in there.
All right, what do you got next for us?
I am going with Wolverine's Revenge. Speaking of some silly tie-ins that most people don't really like at all, I loved Wolverine's Revenge. And I still think, here's the thing, Wolverine's Origins for the 360 PS3 era, that's the best Wolverine game ever, probably the best X-Men game ever. But Wolverine's Revenge, I think, does stealth really, really well. And I think that that's a mechanic that Of course, the hack and slash nature, the God of War approach that was taken with Wolverine's Origins for the 360 PS3 was fantastic, impaling enemies, all that. But the kind of more, it felt slightly more horrorish with Wolverine's Revenge on the PS2 because you're having to be really careful. There's segments where you're like avoiding mines and it's a challenging game. It's very, very challenging. Probably the most challenging of like these silly tie-in games at the time. Most of them were fairly easy because they were intended for a younger audience. Wolverine's Revenge was really, really tough. And I remember I never was able to finish it until I was much older. I didn't finish this until I was probably like 21 or so. So
Wow.
it took me a long time to beat this thing. I always got stuck on it, but I really enjoyed it, swapping the different costumes and unlocking the different costumes. And yeah, Wolverine's Revenge is a classic from my childhood for sure. So that's my number 4.
Cool. I love it. I don't know if I played that one from back then, but you're right. That era just had so many tie-in games, and a lot of them didn't work, but there were some fun standout ones, especially if you're a fan of the source material, like in this case, X-Men and Wolverine, you know.
Yeah, I have one, two, I guess 3, 4, 5 tie-ins that I can shout out here that would be on my 2003 list. A good year for solid tie-in games. But what you got for me for your number 4?
Yeah, for number 4, I have Need for Speed Underground. So I'm not a car guy. I'm like I just that's not my thing. But man, I tell you what, playing Need for Speed Underground back in 2003 was it was such a cool game because it was right around that time that um I know a lot of my friends during that time wanted to like soup up their cars, even though all of us had really crappy cars. We wanted to make it look really cool. So it just tied in nicely with that time frame. But the whole street racing and the customization and that opening song, which I'm immediately already forgetting. What is the opening song to Underground?
Um,
From the
it,
window to the
yeah,
walls.
Little
I
John.
can't.
Yeah,
Yeah, that.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah.
But the reason I love this game so much, apart from just the awesome street racing and the customization, was because it was the first time I was allowed to have a very tiny, like 13-inch TV in my room. And the
Mm.
first game I played on it was Need for Speed Underground. So it immediately brings me back to this time of staying up late in bed. I was allowed to have this little TV, listening to that song, and just customizing my Honda Civic to make it look super duper cool. And then just doing the street races and the neon lights. And oh my gosh, that game was I love racing games, but Need for Speed Underground was ahead of its time, and I haven't seen it matched since, in my opinion. So yeah,
Well, yeah, for that style of racing game, I would have to say that's probably the pinnacle. For the more street racing approach. It's crazy that I don't this it doesn't necessarily matter, but this is right around the time of that first Fast and Furious movie, if I'm not mistaken. And
oh,
and
okay,
shit just got like racing because the people look at Fast and Furious now and you're talking about just insanity. It's an action movie with cars. But the
right.
first Fast and Furious in particular was like that put street racing on the map in a big way. So you saw a huge boom for a lot of these Need for Speed Undergrounds and Midnight Club 3, and like there became a real fervor for those style of titles. And yeah, Underground is about as good as you get. That would be very, very close to my top 5 for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad we're there. All right, what's we're moving on to 3. Well, I'm excited to hear what you got next. So
3, I'm going with my second favorite Star Wars game of all time. So close to number 1, but I think I'd have to go Jedi Survivor number 1. Number 3, I got to go Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. This I love the introduction of new mechanics for like the dual wielding, dual wielding lightsabers for Jedi Survivor, but I still think that Jedi Knight Jedi Academy is the best straight up lightsaber combat game that I've ever experienced, where the lightsaber truly feels like one hit and you're taking out most, like you cannot get hit by that lightsaber. It feels totally just it overpowered, but it's also a really difficult game because you're having to bob and weave and deflect, and like it's challenging in the right ways, but uses the lightsaber correctly as well. So where it's not totally overpowered because you can take damage, but when you hit someone with that lightsaber, it just feels so impactful. It feels like you're slicing through them. And yeah, I love the movement, love the force powers. Jedi Outcast was solid, but Jedi Outcast leaned into a lot of the shooting earlier in the game, and then Jedi Academy, it just totally lets you go lightsabers blazing from the beginning. You get the lightsaber out the gate and you're just off to the races. It's so fun.
This one was this one of the ones I know there's a lot of these similar Star Wars games, as you said, Jedi Outcast. Did this one have the combined first and third person as well? Like where
Uh
you could switch between first person gunplay and then into lightsaber? Did this one also do that? Do you
Yes,
remember?
yes, both of them did. Outcast, I know for sure did because I did that a lot. I switched to first person a lot because it was more shooter focused. With
Okay.
Academy, I played third person the entire time because
Okay.
I always used the lightsaber. You could switch to weapons as well in Academy, and I'm pretty sure you can go to first person because I remember like you could cheese it a little bit and wait for enemies around the corner and go to first person and slightly move the crosshairs and pick them off. So yeah, it had first person as well.
Does it feel weird that like it seems hard based on what you're saying for a Star Wars game to make and nail the lightsaber combat? I feel like I've heard that discourse a lot where it's not happening much, or it didn't happen much in Star Wars games. Obviously, with the newer ones, it does. But you said this is one of the best with lightsaber battles, right? So
Yeah, it's tough because you're kind of running into that same power with like a Superman game, where he's just so overpowered that it's like, how do you make him feel vulnerable? How do you make him feel like he can lose or die? Like obviously introducing kryptonite and stuff like that, but how do you give all the Superman DNA, the Superman powers without uh making it totally overpowered where you're clearing out everything. That's kind of the same thing with a Jedi game. And then if you're running up against other Jedis, that's where Jedi Knight Jedi Academy really shines, where the straight up Jedi versus Jedi duels that are going on, and you're constantly trying to block at the right times, jumping over them. It was so timing based and felt so precise at the time. And obviously, it's a little bit dated now, but it just with the more with Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order, it's very much more hacky and slashy, like kind of Souls-ish with its
mm-hmm.
combat. It feels a little bit clunkier. I shouldn't say clunkier. It just feels more weighty, but
Yeah,
the movement, the finesse of the lightsaber is supposed you see them in it almost looks like they're doing a wand, you know what I mean? Like they're just going nonstop. And so
that's
yeah,
awesome.
it captured that really well with Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. So that's my number 3.
That's a good shout. I'm going to move into something a little different here, I guess. Well, I shouldn't say a little different, a lot different than Star Wars. Mine is going to be Amped 2. So this is a snowboarding game from Xbox. You're going to learn here. A lot of my favorite games are also tied to just things in life or times in my life or whatever. I
Yeah.
grew up in Utah, so I grew up snowboarding. I mean, I could see the mountains out my window where I lived. So for me, snowboarding was integral to my upbringing and my friends and skateboarding and all that stuff. So extreme sports was my jam. So Amped 2 was, of course, the follow-up to Amped Freestyle Snowboarding. It was an Xbox, like one of those Microsoft Sports Studios exclusives alongside like Rally Sport Challenge. But
Yeah.
Amped 2 was like the perfect snowboarding game. And I've even played it a handful of times to this day, and it still holds up as one of the best snowboarding games because it very much feels like a Tony Hawk on snowboarding. Like I know there's a Shaun White pro snowboarder that's meant to be the Tony Hawk version, but Amped 2, just the way it let you use both thumbsticks to like flip and spin and grab at the same time just felt perfect. But what I love the most is they use real mountain resorts. So the mountain resorts that I'd go to in Utah, you can actually go ahead and play them in Amped 2. So I'd be like snowboarding down part of an area and I'd be like, oh, I know where that's at in real life. I was just there though over the last weekend. But for
Nice.
pure like, for pure like snowboarding, just gameplay, they had fun missions. It was just you had great upgrades, and just the way that felt to play made it so special. The third game ended up leaning too much into like cheesy humor and things like that. But gosh, Amp 2 is a phenomenal game from that year. Are you
Yeah.
into extreme? I know you like Tony Hawk, but are you into like these kind of games at all?
Yeah, I picked up Amped for the first time a couple years ago. And because I was trying to collect not all of, but all of the original Xbox exclusive titles that I had interest in. And I heard good things about Amped and I checked it out and it's 100%, you hit the nail on the head. It's Tony Hawk, but snowboarding. Like it feels just like Tony Hawk, but with snowboarding, which is, you can't really go wrong with that formula. It feels
Mm-hmm.
just perfect to play. So yeah, it's That's a damn fun snowboarding game, man. I love SSX Tricky for sure. Is I would say still probably my favorite, but Amped in terms of like giving you almost a picture for picture version of Tony Hawk, but snowboarding, like you can't get much better than Amped.
And it's also, as someone that grew up snowboarding, it's the snowboarding game for snowboarders. I love SSX and I love Tricky as well. But if you want to feel like you're in that zeitgeist and the
Yes.
vibe of snowboarding, although I love SSX, Amped made you feel like you're in that vibe, at least from what I remember. So,
Yeah, slightly more realistic and yeah, for sure.
yeah. All right. But that's enough snowboarding. Let's move on to your number two. What do you got, man?
Number two is a game I played last month. Played it, obviously before that, but replayed it last month. Beyond Good and Evil 1. This is this is aged like fine wine, man. Other than the camera is a little bit wonky, but everything else is just so good with Beyond Good and Evil. The hovercraft missions, you got races going on, you got chase sequences going on, you have puzzle solving. It's Metal Gear meets Tomb Raider with the platforming, meets almost like a Disney-esque aesthetic with the art style. Great story with government corruption taking place, some human trafficking vibes going on. It's so much darker than you would anticipate looking at it on the surface. It's a really impressive game. I highly recommend going back to it. You can still play it on the Series X. Go buy, I think it was like $9.99 when I bought it. So highly recommend Beyond Good and Evil.
Why do you think Beyond Good and Evil became a cult classic versus people just loving it for the day? Because it's a phenomenal game, but it's always seen more like Psychonauts, like a cult classic. Like it didn't have the sales that Ubisoft wanted, right? So why do you think it didn't stick with people at the time? Like now people love it, but I just wonder from your perspective why you don't think it maybe stuck with people or people weren't as interested
I
at the
really,
time.
yeah, I really don't know, man. It's
Hmm.
the thing that bothers me too is, yeah, this is actually crazy that we're talking about this now. I don't know. Do you remember when we recorded? We attempted a podcast a while ago, um, and do you remember me saying that I thought that new Star Wars game from Ubisoft was going to have a lot of the Beyond Good and Evil DNA, the Beyond Good and Evil 2 DNA? Did you
Yes,
see that Star
yes.
Wars Outlaws trailer?
Oh yeah,
The
I'm not even a huge Star Wars fan. It looks amazing. It looks so cool.
I This is so silly and so stupid, but there, even if you look at the speeder, the little hovercraft thing that
Mhm.
I forget the lady's name, the new Star Wars character, which she hops on, it looks very similar to some of the vehicles that you're using in Beyond Good and Evil 2 in the little trailer that they showed. And then like the shields that are popping up in Star Wars Outlaws that you're having to like whittle down. Like there's some things in there where I'm like, damn, did they just totally move all of those assets from Beyond Good and Evil 2 into that Star Wars? And I thought that was possible because of the space exploration and all that. But I don't know, man. I really don't know how they're sitting on an IP like this, but they're sitting on Splinter Cell. They're sitting Ubisoft's a hard studio to read. They have so many classic titles that they shelf. And then I guess we can get Riders Republic and whatever Defiant, Cross Defiant, X2348 600 and I don't know what Ubisoft is ever doing, but they need to get to
They chase
Beyond Good and Evil 2.
trends. They chase trends. That's what they do. So
They absolutely do. To be fair, I will say that Avatar game and that Star Wars game look really good in terms
yeah,
of Ubisoft games. They look really good. But get to Beyond Good and Evil 2, damn it, please.
yeah. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. People, I mean, again, that cult classic status has become to like even more beloved nowadays. So
For sure.
that's a fantastic shout. I'm going to move into. I don't have too much to say about this one, to be honest, even though it's one of my favorite. Is Legacy of Kain Defiance. So I love the whole Legacy of Kain, the whole Raziel, all of those stories. But that being said, I didn't own a PlayStation 1 at the time, so I didn't play Soul Reaver and the things like that until much later. And now I love them, and I know we'll talk about this in another time, but that's one of those series that absolutely needs to come back. I know they were going to bring one back like on the Xbox 360 or PS3 era, but then it ended up getting canned. Anyway, Legacy of Kain Defiance. It's basically like another vampire third person action game where you, of course, play as Kain. I think there's Raziel sections as well in there. But it's just exploring spooky, moody, gothic environments, puzzle solving, tons of action. You get to suck the blood out of people like you would as a vampire. And I love that gothic, moody vibe. And this game with the action just felt so good at the time. So I don't have too much to say. It's just a fantastic game if you like that, especially if you like the Legacy of Kain series and somehow missed out, because I think it was also the last one in the series, or at least the last main one, I believe, Defiance. So
Yeah. I gotta say, I,
yeah, there
I
it is. I have it.
oh, you got a copy of it?
I was just trying to see
Nice.
if I had it. Sorry.
I was so bummed out the other day, and I should have saw this coming from a mile away. But did you see Embracer? Some deal fell through. They had like a $2 billion deal on the table, Embracer, and something happened. The investor pulled out. People assume it might have been Microsoft, it might have been Amazon, whatever the case may be. But this big investment pulled out for Embracer, and they put out a statement saying that a lot of their projects that they had in the work, they're going to begin canceling some of those.
Oh no.
And they own the IP to Legacy of Kain
Oh
to
no.
yeah, they own that IP. They own the Deus Ex IP. They
Oh,
own the Thief IP. They own the Tomb Raider IP. And it's like they did say that Tomb Raider is still in full production and that'll come out, but I did start thinking about Deus Ex and Legacy of Kain, and I'm like, oh my God, man, please don't scrap those two. I think those might be a little bit too big to scrap. I'm thinking that they might be looking more along the lines of your, potential future Saints Row titles or your potential future Destroy All Humans titles. No offense to those games, but yeah, I think Deus Ex and Legacy of Kain should be okay, but I don't know, man. They bit off way more than they could chew with gobbling up everything. I bums me
yeah.
out, but yeah,
Okay.
man, great shout out there. That I've never played those games. I got to go through and play all those games. I really want to, because it's right up my alley. So I'm
You
hoping
would
for
love
a
it. Yeah.
day.
You would definitely love it. All right. Well, we're moving on to our potential favorite here. So what do you got for your number one?
I I'm a broken record, man.
It's okay.
People are gonna hate me.
Oh,
SmackDown here,
stop it.
SmackDown. Here comes the pain. I can't sit here and lie. Look, Shut Your Mouth was huge. It was a huge step forward, but Here Comes the Pain just upped it to a totally different degree. The from the story, like my favorite thing about Here Comes the Pain, and it's so stupid, but the cinematic panning whenever you would pull off your finisher, they would cut to all these different angles, and it looked so cinematic. It looked so damn good. It was just, Here Comes the Pain was like the step forward in terms of gameplay and mechanics that the SmackDown series really needed. And it definitely did build off the back of Shut Your Mouth, but Here Comes the Pain was a humongous step forward. Yeah, man. SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. That's got to be my number one. I played this thing endlessly. So yeah, just quick shout out to it. I've been shouting out every wrestling game ever, so I'm just gonna throw a quick one to Here Comes the Pain. It's absolutely my number one by a long shot.
I love when you talk about wrestling games because you get so excited and passionate like a little kid. It's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have to apologize for it. If it's your favorite, it's your favorite. What, as someone that's not, at least anymore, like a wrestling fan, I tend to see, or even like a regular sports fan, I tend to see like sports games, maybe even wrestling games, is kind of just iterative each year. So at least in this case, what kind of made it, maybe you already mentioned, I'm just wondering like what builds off to make a new wrestling game feel even better for you overall?
Here
Is it
comes the
like the overall feel, or is it just like specific like gameplay elements?
Well, yeah, it definitely is iterative of Shut Your Mouth. It very much is, but this feels like you're the graphical leap was absolutely there. The story, it began getting very, the story in Shut Your Mouth was a game changer, where it began getting a lot more choice driven and leaning into that a lot more. And then Here Comes the Pain just totally doubled down on it. The backstage segments where you could like take the Undertaker and his he was the biker at the time, so you could literally drive his motorcycle around the arena and the backstage areas and stuff. The backstage areas were like all interconnected in Here Comes the Pain. And yeah, it was a humongous leap for. Oh, they added the, I believe, once again, we're talking about 2003, 20 years ago. I think that this was the first year that added the elimination chamber, which is a match where you have people waiting in these pods, and you have like a certain countdown until they can come out, and they all get into this big battle that's entrapped inside of this cage. But you can take the people, and here comes the pain, and smash them through the pods for like, so it's total carnage. It's just, yeah, it was a huge leap forward in a lot of areas, but it also is iterative of Shut Your Mouth. It feels like the most complete package of all the SmackDown games to that point, though.
Cool. Again, you shouldn't have to apologize if it's your favorite. It doesn't matter if it's in the same vein of things. Like it's your favorite. So
I will say, there won't be another wrestling game until 2005. The next 2 years, I don't think that. Yeah, the next 2 years are too packed, and I didn't enjoy SmackDown versus Raw, the first one, as much as I did the second one. So the second one will be there in 2005, but the first one probably won't be.
that's a big spoiler for you. Yeah, there's not going to be a wrestling game then. Okay.
Yeah. But back to 2005, we'll get into a yearly cycle of them bad boys hitting my list again until about 2008 or so. So
you'll get me into wrestling games one way or the other.
WrestleQuest, do your job.
Yeah, exactly. That would do it. So my last one, again, I won't spend too much time on it, but is Castlevania Aria of Sorrow for the Game Boy Advance. Castlevania is hands down, apart from like Silent Hill and a couple others, one of my favorite series of all times. I've played all of them. I haven't beat all of them, but I've played all Castlevania games. I just adore that franchise, again, because I love spooky, gothic, moody, vampire, like all that kind of supernatural stuff. So Aria of Sorrow came out on the Game Boy Advance, which might sound reductive, but it took the 2D Metroidvania, obviously elements of something like Symphony of the Night, and just made it a little bit more cartoony, not in terms of like the story and the vibe, but cartoony in terms of the visuals, but kept up the really polished gameplay, the leveling up, the expansive castle settings with just different biomes. I love Symphony of the Night, so Aria of Sorrow just kind of picked up on a lot of that, kind of iterative, I guess, in the same sense of what we were just talking about. I don't go back to the Game Boy Advance really much anymore, but Aria of Sorrow from 2003 is a phenomenal Metroidvania and a phenomenal Castlevania game. There was a couple others on GBA, but that was the top one, in my opinion. So
yeah. Nice, man. Well, that is our top 10 games of 2003. Well, our top 5 apiece. I'm going to quickly go through my honorable mentions here. I would, and I'll just go ahead and list them out to let people know where they would be ranked. 6 would be Tony Hawk Underground 1. 7 would be Def Jam Vendetta. 8 would be Knights of the Old Republic. 9 would be Madden 04. 10 would be Simpsons Hit and Run. And Freedom Fighters would be at 11. So Freedom Fighters barely, but I will say, Tony Hawk Underground 1 and Silent Hill 3, that was a tough choice for me. Tony Hawk Underground 1, that was a game changer. I loved the open world, the create a character, more story focus to it. Like that totally vibed with me. Getting off your board and having more of those exploration sections going on, totally vibed with Tony Hawk Underground 1. So that's really close to number 5. That's like, 5.1 and 5.2. So yeah.
I'm glad you shouted that one out. That's one of my honorable mentions. So yeah, my last 5, if I was to do them in order, number 6 would be Mario Kart Double Dash. Number 7, which I had, was Tony Hawk's Underground. There was another crossover. Number 8 was Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc as a platforming fan. Number 9, as a Harry Potter fan, Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup. And my number 10 was 13 XIII. Don't play the remake ones, or at least one of the remake ones, but the original 13. The cell shaded shooter was great back in the day, and it's still the best version. So
yeah, nice. Well, those are our top 10 games of 2003.
Yes, sir.
So it's been a long recording, but we are finally to the final topic that you good people voted on over on the community poll on youtube.com/unnecessary rambling. And you all voted for a physical versus digital discussion. This was teased in the last episode where we were talking about Alan Wake 2. We were talking about, why does this thing not have a physical copy? And Jeffrey, I will say, whenever we were discussing that, you said something to the effect of, is that really going to prevent you from buying Alan Wake 2? So I know that you're, we're in, I think we're similar in some respects with this. Like, I don't think either of us hate digital or hate physical. Like you don't sit in either of those camps, do you?
No, not at all. Not, there's not major polarity. No.
Yeah. So this discussion, it's not going to be, at least from my perspective, like I'm not an anti digital guy at all. Obviously, you see behind me, I will anytime there is a physical version of a game available that I want to buy, if it's at the similar price range, like if Jedi Fallen Order is on sale for $14 on the Xbox store and I don't have a physical copy of it, and the physical copy is $18, like I'll go buy the physical copy. I do value the ownership of physical media, but I'll still buy games digitally, like, and I'll double dip if I have something physically and I want to grab it on a different system or whatever. I'm not an anti-digital guy by any stretch of the imagination. But what is your kind of stance? What is your perspective? How often do you purchase physical versus digital? Just a little breakdown for you.
Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I don't have much to say on the subject because again, like kind of like the whole not our console wars, like the other console wars thing that's out there is like I don't have a big say either way. So for me, I'm almost 100% digital. I just you literally what you see behind me, that's my physical collection, but that's simply by nature. I just don't have space.
Yeah.
Like if I had all these shelves, I love collecting physical for the retro games I used to play back in the day. I don't really go back and play a lot of them unless I have like a very big motivation to do so. I just like looking at them. For me, it's like I love just looking at them and having the memories tying it to that time in my life when I played it, good, bad, or otherwise, usually good. So for me, honestly, I'm pretty much almost 100% digital. I should say I'm 100% digital when it comes to new games. I don't buy the last new game I bought was like God of War 2018 for PS4.
Oh wow.
I'm just I just prefer convenience at this point, with bouncing between systems and the channel I used to do before was very focused on digital. I play a lot of indie games. Pretty much most of those are digital, with the exception of like super rare games and limited run, who do a great job of physical. Yeah. So I guess the brevity, the short answer is I prefer digital. I like having retro games to collect, and I would hate to not have that. But
Yeah.
if we're talking about new games releasing in 2023, for example, I don't even want it to be physical. That's not important to me. So
Yeah.
anyway, so go ahead.
So for me, it's I don't ever take offense of someone deciding to go digital. Like I'm sure you have damn good internet speeds in Chicago, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So like those, people who are sitting around like 100 megabytes per second download speeds and stuff like that, I your reasoning to go digital makes total sense in my opinion, especially when thinking about space and all of those things make total sense to me. The big thing that worries me is just the lack of laws, the lack of any sort of infrastructure that's being built currently to prevent these publishers from just stripping your purchase away from you. Like with in March, over 1,000 digital games were just wiped off the Wii U eShop. So if you didn't buy them,
Right.
but before or had a physical copy of it, if you didn't buy it digitally before whatever date that was in March, or if you didn't have a physical copy, those games are just totally inaccessible. Or the digital only games that didn't get a Switch port, they're gone. Like, and
Yeah.
the preservation aspect of things is what really worries me, because there's a lot of good games, once again, like you said, indie games that can't, they can't afford printing the physical copies, and they can't afford doing all the manufacture like that's a big cost. And the fact that if we establish laws that would, have in stone writing that would completely for eternity make sure that you could have access to your digital purchases, like you even saw with oh, there was a game recently that got pulled from where you can't even buy it anymore digitally. And it's just like
Hmm.
and this is like on modern systems, just Crossfire X. You can't even buy it anymore. It's just wiped away, and it wasn't a very good game. And then
Nobody wants to buy that anyway. It's okay.
I get that, but
I know. I'm just trying to make a joke. I know.
no, I got you. Yeah, but from the standpoint of like, if they can do that with that game, they can do it with any game. And I don't know. It gets so much more nuanced and we can kind of dive into it, but it's just like, deleting content because it might not be deemed appropriate for modern standards and all these things where it's like, okay, well, who draws the line on that? You get to, like, I remember with Peacock, and I'm sorry to go on a tangent here because I am
No,
kind of
no, no,
passionate
please.
about this. Is I remember with Peacock, and then I don't even remember what they removed. I don't even know if they removed anything, but I remember the big fear was whenever Peacock got access to the WWE network, they were supposed to be removing some of like the Attitude Era bits that were deemed offensive. And look,
Mm.
I don't know what they removed. I don't know if they might have ended up backtracking on that or whatever, but it's just the fact that whenever it's all in this digital ecosystem that you have no ownership over whatsoever, they can just, whoever owns the rights to that digital product can just kind of tinker with things like, who gives you the right to be
Mm.
the arbiter? Who gives you the right to deem what is appropriate or what is something that should stay on the store and something that isn't? It's just, it's very sketchy to me.
I mean, your passion comes through, but it's well versed and it makes sense because you're right. I guess we've been in an age with this. Not maybe gaming is newer to it, but you think again about music, right? Like, I guess
Yes.
to me, I want to have these conversations sometimes to be like playing the devil's advocate as well, because I definitely agree with you on that. It's very sad when games just go away. I guess in my mind, I've just kind of accepted that. Maybe I shouldn't accept that, but I've accepted that that's just part of, unfortunately, the future of this stuff. Just like with music, right? I can't think. I know you can collect vinyl and CDs, but like most people, maybe you can answer for me. Like music, I can't even imagine just playing a CD anymore. Or I mean, I'm not a vinyl person, but for me, just the ability to play music just off my phone, like that's like magical. I know it's different than games, but I'm just thinking like the convenience you lose out. So by having the convenience of digital, yes, that means you're going to lose out on potentially that content could just go away. You're right, that sucks. Like, I don't know what the solution is to that, because physical is just not going to, it just won't be around forever. At some point it will end. I think that's just the sad reality. I guess, how do you view when it comes to something like music?
So the file size is a big issue that separates music from gaming. You're talking about 100 gigabyte games, 70 gigabyte games. And like you said, in Chicago, in these, New York, Los Angeles, like these big cities, they usually will have, at least 100 megabyte per second download speeds, and that's going to ensure that buying something digitally isn't a huge hindrance to your life. If I were to buy, like, let's say the new Final Fantasy game, if I were to buy that digitally, I'm waiting days for that thing to download. And I
Hmm.
also, I want to say something that really really bothers me, and it's just a total misunderstanding that people have about physical media, where people will say, oh, well, if you buy a physical copy of a game, it's essentially just a download code anyway. That's not true for 99.9% of PS5 and Switch games. If you buy
Sure.
the physical copy of the game, yes, there will be updates and patches, but most games you can play from start to finish without updates or patches. The updates or patches, that's what you have to have you have to have, the internet access for that. But the actual download of what's on the disc, that's why they said with Final Fantasy VII, the remake, it'll come on 2 discs, because it's
Right.
going to be the complete game on 2 discs. So, each disc's I think 100 gigabytes. So it's going to be like 150, 120, whatever it ends up being. But they needed 2 discs so that it can come complete
Hmm.
on that disc. And they value and understand that that will be preserved forever, despite, as long as you have a PlayStation 5 and you have the 2 discs for Final Fantasy VII, the part two, the rebirth, you will be able to play that game forever, regardless of any internet connectivity. You'll be able to play it forever, as long as it's there's no crazy patch that requires you those things do pop up, but it's not as common as people believe in. And it's almost a defeatist attitude that kind of bothers me, where it's like people go, oh, well, you got to have the patches and you got to have the updates anyway to be able to play it. And it's like, because we keep letting them, because we
Yeah.
keep allowing it. If we started coming to an agreement that like games should come out and have a fully playable version on day one, and we started demanding that, those things could be achieved. And
Yeah.
it is achieved more often than not. So most publishers, most developers do value that, because they understand, to preserve their product, the version that they put out on store shelves, it has to be complete on that disc to ensure that it stays preserved for throughout time.
Yeah, again, perfectly well said. And I want to make this note here. I'm just only playing devil's advocate for like the fun of a conversation. I 1,000,000% agree with you. Although I don't buy new games physically, can just by nature of what you said, for convenience, and it's sometimes just easier. I don't want to see. I would be so sad to see a world where you lose out and it's just one, or I mean, I guess just one or the other. So I don't think physical should go away at all. I just, my concern, again, just being, not try to be negative, but my concern is like, how long will that last? Everything we see is pushing to that. You can't really buy DVDs and Blu-ray movies anymore. Yes, you can, but that's
Yeah.
becoming so much less because of subscription services. So I just think, I don't want it to go away, but I guess to your point of like, well, we just should not support when developers don't do it, or support all these big updates. But the problem is people vote with their wallets. And just like with conversations around microtransactions or loot boxes, everyone complains, but everyone still spends money. You know what I mean? That's the problem. Is
Yeah.
like people are complaining about, Fortnite and Warzone and Overwatch, and like people are spending billions of dollars on this and everyone hates it, but they don't, because we're all still spending money on it. So I guess it's like we still vote with our wallets, right?
The only
Or
thing
we
I'll
should be.
Yeah, the only thing I'll push back on a little bit there is that you still, like you said, you still can buy vinyl. You can, for the majority of big releases for Blu-ray, unless it's like a Netflix exclusive. Obviously, they don't really want to put out a physical copy, and I understand that. But like you can get physical releases for the majority of the bigger films still to this day, the majority of the bigger albums still to this day, and those are very, very, I would say, very and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, so someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that both of those industries are much more pushing towards the digital future way quicker than gaming. I think it's still something like 25% of all purchases in the gaming marketplace are done physically. That's a you publishers don't want to miss out on 25% of their sales. If you're talking about a game that sells 50 million copies, like that's a big percentage when you start getting into larger numbers like that. So yeah, it's I understand we're pushing towards that day, but I actually don't think it's going to come as quick as people assume. People are talking about by the end of this generation we'll be all digital, and I unless there is some plan in place right now, which we see, with Starlink and these different satellite internets services that are coming to fruition. If those become more reliable and those become widely available at a lower cost, then maybe we can get to a point of an all digital ecosystem in gaming. But those file sizes are just way bigger than film and music. So it's like that's
Yeah.
why that's the big reason why I end up going physically, is to avoid having to sit there and hassle with my internet that barely works half the time.
Yeah. I don't, I mean, again, all the points you're making are solid and I don't disagree with them, so it just, I'm probably not the best person to have this conversation with. Cause like, to me, it's like, I just want there to be both. Like I'm
Yeah.
not like one side or the other. I just opt more on convenience. But you're right, that really is dependent on people's internets. That's dependent on where you're at in the world, and not everyone has good infrastructure. And interestingly, the U.S. has worse infrastructure than lots of places in the world, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And to address the point that I skipped over, which I shouldn't have, your big point, which is absolutely the worst, is that at any point your purchase can just be gone digitally. And
Yeah.
you're right. That's something I think about. Like, I don't, yeah, it's a first world problem. But like when I look at like my games on Xbox, my wife's like, God, you got like 400 games. And I'm like, yeah, that's super cool. But like, you're right. Any of those could just be gone at any second. I mean, most of the time, as long as you have it downloaded and
Yep.
installed, that can't go away. I think the most notorious in a tangential way is PT.
Yes.
You look at PT from years ago, the playable teaser for what was going to be Silent Hills. That's a small example, and that's, yeah, you didn't buy it because it was a demo. But you think about, people are clamoring to get a PS4 that still has PT installed on it, because Konami in their infinite wisdom is like, we're just going to take it away. They can make that call, but it's like, if it's a game you purchased, as you had said, we're not actually purchasing the game digitally. You're purchasing the ability to play the game. And you're right.
Exactly.
That sucks. You're right. Like that just sucks. But it's like all of that fine print, the EULAs, all those things we all just skip over. We're all just agreeing to it blindly. So it sucks. Yeah. I mean, there's no way around it. It just sucks. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to read you this tweet that I pulled up because I remembered this and I wanted just it's TMV. I'll put it up on the screen so people can see it. He posted, Amazon deleted my Final Space digital purchase of season 1 and 2. My video library has been wiped clean of Final Space content. Well, WTF. And Amazon Help replies directly, says, hello, your purchase titles may become unavailable due to licensing restrictions or for other limited reasons. You can read more about this here. And it gives a link to like pretty much saying what you buy does not mean it's an indefinite purchase. It means that until something pops up, until we have to pull this away from you for whatever reason we deem fit, rather it be licensing issues, rather it be content issues, whatever, it's just gone. And it's like, look, man, here's my thing. If we're going to go all digital, you know what I want? Let's go all the way into subscription services. Okay, cool. Okay. Don't bullshit me. Don't tell me I own something that I don't own. Let's go all subscription services. I know I don't own that. Fine. I'm paying you $15 a month so I can access infinite freaking day one first party games from Game Pass and all these back catalog games. I'm never going to cancel that subscription. Just like I went to Blockbuster nonstop. If give me value to get into this digital marketplace and don't lie to me on the way there. Okay, cool. I'll just download the day one first party games that I want to play, or the third party games or you know, the back catalog games, and I'll understand that I don't have infinite access to these games. But this lie of you paying $30 for something digitally, and I bought Layers of Fear digitally. I don't think it has a physical copy. I'm not totally anti-digital. It's just I don't like the fact that there's nothing in place preventing these services or these servers from just being wiped one day. And yeah, that's just kind of my whole point on it, I guess.
No, but it's the point that I think you're right. As a industry, and again, myself included, at times needs to adopt, because if I couldn't, these few games that I have, if I couldn't now go onto a retro site and buy those for all the nostalgic reasons we've talked about with our top games or whatever, I'd be really bummed. Yes. Like if I couldn't go play freaking Haunted Mansion because I can't buy it, I would be really sad by that. So that's happening. You're right. That's happening now, because 10 years from now, you may not be able to get Layers of Fear, for example, right?
Right.
Because of XYZ reason, if you didn't already have it and blah, blah, blah. You might lose a hard drive. You might, whatever. You can't just buy it again from someone else. So I think, again, your point is it's a sad reality. I guess my thing is, how is it going to, can it change? Will it change? And like, will enough people ensure it changes? I don't want physical to go away at all either. Even if I don't partake in it, it needs to be there, because you're right. Preservation is huge, and it's going to be sad. And even 100 years from now, if this industry's gone because you can't play any of the things that were created in these years, for example.
Right. Well, it's just like, they were talking about wiping the PS3 store a while ago, and then a bunch of people got outraged about that. And then the backlash ensured that wouldn't be the case. And I'm never, I agree with you, Jeffrey. I'm a vote with your wallet guy. I think people do way too much talking, myself included. I'll bitch about something and then end up not, following through. And it's like, here's my thing. Do whatever you want to do. I really don't care what people do. I just hope that if you decide that if you are a physical games guy, if that's something that you truly believe in and you want that to stay around, and I understand if people like you said, shelf space and then the time and convenience, whatever you value, whatever's more important to you. I'm not shitting on anyone for having their preferences, but my thing is this: if you truly do value physical games, I can't listen to the convenience argument. I can't listen to it. It drives me up the wall. For someone who is passionate about physical games, for someone who wants this, wants to have that option available, to then hear someone say, yeah, well, I was going to buy it physically, but I didn't want to drive to the store, or I didn't want to go to my mailbox to pick it up from Amazon. It's like, dude, you're going to kill you're going to kill the option of having physical available. I understand. Once again, so many people, it's not it. I don't mind if someone goes all digital, but if you are passionate about physical games and you have the space to keep physical games around, and that's something that you want to stay as a viable part of this industry, just go buy it physically, and keep because the further we see, if it gets to 90-10, if the split goes 90% digital, 10% physical, yeah, we're done. So we just got to prevent that from happening, because it is vote with your wallet. It's very much vote with your wallet.
Yeah. I think that sums it up good. If you're passionate about, yeah. I mean, I don't need to rehash. I think that just summed it up perfectly. So
Yeah.
it's a good topic, and it's an ever evolving topic. And you know what I mean? It can change so often because as the industry is so volatile. So, I mean, game preservation, no matter what, at the end of the day, is a tough thing, and it needs to happen, though. You're right. Or otherwise future generations are going to lose out on all these things we're enjoying right now. And that's a bummer.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And you're talking about, a lot of these lawmakers and stuff, not trying to be rude, but might not be the most knowledgeable in this field. So it's very much on us, man. It's very much on us to keep supporting the things that we want to stay around. And that would just be my only, like, I'm not trying to TED talk here, but if you have passion for something, if you enjoy something, and if you want something to continue staying around, just support it, man. Support it. That's the only way you're going to ensure that anything that you enjoy, anything that you love, stays around consistently, is if you put your money where your mouth is. And yeah, so that's the end of I'm gonna get off my high horse here. And yeah, I don't know. It is something that I'm really passionate about. It's something that I could go on and on with for forever, but I'll end it there. That's kind of my overall thoughts on the physical versus digital argument. And sorry to kind of drag you into the my monologue here, because it is kind of like it's something I think about, like, literally all the time. It's something I'm really, really passionate about, but it's not something that, like, I don't hate digital games. You know what I mean? I don't hate it at all. If there was a better infrastructure in place that prevented just that stuff being wiped, then yeah, I wouldn't be anti-digital.
I mean, it's a good conversation. You have nothing to apologize for. That's the point of this. Is there's going to be lighthearted, there's going to be more serious. Like, it's a blend of things, right? And I think we need to have these talks, and it's fun to talk about it. And it's good to share our when we have not different sides, but like we look at things a little differently, but then still want the same thing. So I think it's going to make for interesting conversation. So I mean, again, people voted on. People also want to hear about it. Clearly, you know what I mean. So
yeah, and that's the thing. We'll hit on whatever topics that you got. To give a little backstory for how we do this, Jeffrey and I each submit 2 topics each week, and we put those into the poll, and then whatever gets picked, we end up rolling with that. So head on over to the community poll that goes up every Thursday on Unnecessary Rambling around 9 a.m. or so. So make sure to go on over there and vote to get the final topic that you want discussed on the show. But that is the show. That's the show for today, man. So I appreciate you, Jeffrey. Appreciate you for sharing your infinite wisdom with me.
That was fun, man. It was a long one, man. If anyone stuck with it, please just know, I say, we know 2 hours, 3 hours, almost 3 hours is a long time. We don't expect people to sit there. You got things to do, but that's the joy of this, is we have so many different segments and clips and little areas of the show. Like, it's not just one topic. So obviously, if you can watch more of it, great. If you just need to hop around to the things that interest you, I do that. By all means, do that. We just want you to be able to hopefully have a good time here, and just get some good vibes as we talk about our passionate game stuff. So thank you, Brandon, for once again our second show together. Hopefully it went well for everyone. I'm excited for our continued journey. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Thank you for taking the time. We really, really, really appreciate it so much. So
definitely, man. Yeah, it's been a blast, man. And I appreciate you all for tuning in. Episode 16, heading into with a 15. Fury. Yeah. This is 15. Heading into heading into 16 with a Final Fantasy Fury in mind. So some Final Fantasy 16 on episode 16.
Oh, look, it's meant to be. It was like the stars aligned just for you.
Keep it smoothing, baby.
Keep smoothing, baby. All right. Well, we'll see y'all next week, and keep smoothing.
Keep smoothing. Take it easy, guys. See you all soon. Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.